again, you're welcome to the public-private dialogue. The theme is strengthening enabling policies, environments for fertilizer systems, seed systems, warehouse systems in Nigeria. So we'll just go straight to the welcome address. The welcome address is going to be given by the CEO of the NESG, the person of Mr. Lawi Jayola.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me once again welcome us to this dialogue session, and I want to thank you for coming punctually. And my job is very simple, just to welcome you and to set the ball rolling. There's no doubt that, depending on the data you believe, that Nigerian population is about 200 million. And there's no doubt that as a nation we have quite a lot of arable land, and we put quite a few of them under cultivation. And there's no doubt that as it is today, we are still not sufficient in terms of our food production. And we spend a lot of money on our food bill. And so the work that we've done that is culminated in this discussion, ably supported and led by AGRA and their sponsors, has been how can we ensure that we get meaningful yield from land cultivated? How can you ensure that the seed that our people plant give them meaningful yield? And so the journey so far has been looking at those things that are impediments and bottlenecks. So why is it that farmers do not have value for money? In the course of this work, we've had interaction with farmers across the 6 geopolitical circles. And we've gone around to synthesize them and to discuss with them. For me, as the CEO of NESG, it was quite appalling to me to know that our farmers they use under 5% real seeds for their cultivation. And what would have imagined, what would have happened if they had actually used the right variety, well-improved seed, given the land area of cultivation that we have? What that would do in terms of how to lift people out of the bottom of the pyramid, what that would do to our exchange rates and our sufficiency as a nation, what that would do to job creation, especially if we then track the value chain and do backward integration. And so you can understand why to us as the NESG, it's something that we found in alignment with what we do when the AGRA team approach us. At the NESG, we do public-private dialogue, and we've been at this now for 25 years. This year marks our 25 years as a PPD platform. And we are non-partisan, non-for-profit, and very apolitical. So we don't take government money. And that gives us the liberty to address issues squarely. But we're a group that believes that partnership is the way to go. You need collaboration. So our doors are open to all government agencies, development partners, and so what we do is we do more public-private dialogue. But in the course of this 9th assembly, we started a new thing, because we've always wanted to knock the door of the legislators and see how to reach them, especially when it comes to having quality bills, quality regulations in the land. But we were not successful until this year. And if you look at the pack you have, there's one report that is called the Indonesia report. And that report actually covers our work with the National Assembly. That's what gave rise to what is called NASBA. NASBA is the National Assembly Business Environment Roundtable. And it is a meeting between the private sector and the National Assembly in the formulation of laws. So that's the work we've been doing with them in terms of lawmaking. And so we're glad to know that we have been partnering with the National Assembly in this seed bill, in this fertilizer bill, and the warehouse and receipt bill. And that's just the one that we're doing that is related to our brief. There's a lot more that we've done with them. And we do this using partners. Our major partner in this work is the MBA Session of Business and Law. And so we want to appreciate the fact that you're here. What we do is we dialogue. We don't assume we know it all. We bring in stakeholders and practitioners in the room so that they can discuss and distill the issues. And when we've succeeded in saving what the issues are, we then engage government in seeing how can we have a progress. So it's not a vote of thanks, but I cannot but raise on record what our friends in the National Assembly have done. And those some of the clerks are supposed to be here. I don't know what's coming here. Of the National Assembly, they've been very supportive. Our friends in FSS 2020, sometimes we turn out their office in the secretariat to make sure we drive this thing because they believe in some of the works we're doing. And of course, our sponsors through AGRA, USAID, who have been sponsoring this part of this work. And like I said, I'm not the one who vote of time. Our groups is it FITSAN? The Fertilizer Group, the Seed Council, all of this we've done together because what we do is to put everybody in the room. Of course, I don't forget those that pay my dues, the private sector people who are in the house with me, and we do all this work. So this money, what we want to do is again to let us discuss this bill more and sensitize the government on the imperative of getting the Mr. President to sign this bill. They are on their way almost to the President, and we want your own discussions, our own discussion. You recall initially the Seed Council bill was rejected by Mr. President, and through the support of the National Assembly, we worked on it to ensure it's on its way back. The fertilizer bill too, all getting back. And so what we want to do is just to add to making at least, and I want to recognize our friends from the Ministry of Agri, so forgive me, I mean, these are the people in the room, the Ministry of Agri and Rural Development. So all of us know the need and importance of ensuring that we make the agri sector work better than it is working. Because a lot of our population are on the farm. And I and the NESG believe strongly that the agri industry, to work on the agro ally and do a lot of backward integration, is tied us in good stead in ensuring that we get our people to work, have a wrap up, and get people out of poverty. So, on behalf of the board, management, and staff of the NESG, and our partners in AGRA, and all of those that have put this work together, it is my pleasure and privilege to welcome you to this dialogue and to say, let's have a fruitful deliberation.
Let's give him another round of applause. Yes. The next, we're just going straight. The next item on the agenda, as you can see, is the opening remarks by AGRA Nigeria. This opening remarks is going to be taken by Dr. Thomas Benga Arukoyo. He is the Programs Officer, Policies and Partnerships for AGRA. Thank you. Please put your hands together.
Good morning, all. It's my pleasure to be with us this morning. I will sincerely apologize because what I believe I should give this morning, I may not be able to give exactly, but I'll do the best I can because there were some issues we just solved as I came in here. However, AGRA, as a development organization in Nigeria, AGRA is Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, isn't it? And AGRA was an initiative of late Kofi Annan when he was the Secretary of the United Nations. He realized that, look, most of the continents of the world were food sufficient, so to say, except Africa. So, look, I want people who believe in this to come around and support me. And that was why the alliance came forth. Yes, there was the Green Revolution in other continents of the globe, we want to have our own green revolution in Africa. So he brought people who believed in what he was saying to come up. And that's why largely you'll see AGRA funding is just a kind of partnerships with people of like minds who believe in the prosperity of Africa. Coming to AGRA in Nigeria, let's get there. Before now, AGRA had been supporting agriculture in form of silos. Pick this and just do, pick that. But recently there was need to use the integrated approach rather than doing individual interventions that are not making significant impact. You want to look at agricultural development supporting the value chain, taking the value chain approach, then supporting government implementation arrangement of its agricultural development plan. Right now, AGRA is looking at its intervention in two major aspects: state-level support and system support. State-level support largely, AGRA is doing its support in Niger and Kaduna states. And the crops that AGRA is supporting are cassava, rice, maize, and soybean. Soybean came in lately. It's only rice that the project AGRA is supporting in Niger State. And AGRA is looking at supporting about 156,000 farmers in Niger and in Kaduna through this state-level support, about 270,000 farmers at that level. Then the system support, AGRA is looking at fixing the system. It's like bridging the gap. Over time, there has been people doing one thing or the other on individual basis in isolated forms. But there is need to bring this together to make a prosperous whole, a profitable whole, a successful whole, a meaningful whole, so to say. So AGRA decided to support the various systems that have been the gaps. The fertilizer system, farmers have not been getting the right quality of fertilizer, they're not getting them at the right time in the right forms. AGRA had to support the fertilizer system. Yes, there are hurdles there, which is why where we have the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, the public is not the one involved in fertilizer production. It's the private sector. How do we link the private sector? How do we link the legislative arm of government to ensure that farmers get the right quality of fertilizer where they want it at the right time? NESG has the capacity to do the linkage, which is where AGRA comes in to support what has been done and to get legislative backing for that. Sorry, yeah, this is better. To give it legislative backing. Not just that, AGRA is also supporting the seed system. Regardless of what agricultural attempts any farmer makes, regardless of what agronomic practice he puts in place, if you are not starting with the right seeds, you are bound to fail. Now we want to look at increase in productivity. Farmers are not getting the best from what they put into the agricultural thing they do because their yields are generally low. Why are they not getting high yields? For example, in rice, there are countries where you can get as high as 10, 15 metric tons per hectare. The highest we have gotten in Nigeria is about 7 metric tons, although in the project I worked before coming to AGRA, we had farmers getting 14 metric tons per hectare. That's in Taraba State, dry season rice. And in Zamfara, there were those getting between 11 and 12 metric tons per hectare. So it is a doable thing, right? Doing the right thing. So there was need to fix the seed problem. So AGRA had to come in to support the seed system to ensure that farmers get the right quality of seed. And doing this does not start from the seed, the end product. You want to take it from the upstream, from the point of breeder stage through foundation seed and the final seed that goes to the hands of the farmers. AGRA is supporting production of enough breeder seed, foundation seed, and getting seed companies. For example, AGRA is supporting Premier Seed and Value Seed to produce seed for farmers out there. Another seed company AGRA is supporting is Daol Green in Niger State. But importantly, every one of us here knows that seed issues lies with the Nigerian Agricultural Seed Council, which is where the support for AGRA is largely based, to ensure that the process of getting farmers the right quality of seed is taken care of at that level. And for that reason, AGRA is also supporting the production of plant variety protection that is like intellectual property for those people out there, so that any scientist that produces a breed or a variety of rice or whatever crop can be protected, can get value for his efforts, and nobody comes in to take praise for what another one has done. In addition, AGRA is also trying to ensure that what you see with some drugs where you use scratch cards, whatever seeds you are seeing in town, you should be able to check and know who is producing and be able to be sure this is the right quality of seed that you expect to pick, so that you don't just go and pay money and get rubbish. Right now we see a lot of polluted seed, a lot of deceit in the seed business. AGRA wants to stop that, and largely that is what discourages farmers from really going out to get the seed. A lot of the time you get to the farm level, you discover they keep recycling what they have been planting, because they cannot believe, let me take the drudgery to get to town to buy seed only for you to plant something that is not viable. There have been reports of farmers planting seed that they got nothing, not even small, nothing whatsoever. So next year you come to him to say you are marketing this seed, he's not going to do it. And at the end of the day, we all keep wallowing in poverty. The man, I used to encourage some of our farmers to go get the right seed by telling them it's like you are bringing two old couples together. A very old man of 80 and his wife of about 70 or whatever. Ask them to start to procreate. You can imagine what you will get. They are used, like you call in poultry, spent layers. So what are you going to get from those? Unlike when you bring very young virile seeds, young people, 20, 25, they start to breed like rats, So, that's I try to bring very examples they can, understand. So that's the and that's the reason AGRA had to fix that gap by supporting and ensure that if you know you are getting something worthwhile from what you are doing, you keep doing it, isn't it? So that is why AGRA is supporting that. Now, you also discover the seed may be here, the farmers may be there. How do they know? Where is the encouragement? AGRA goes on to support the extension services. And like many of us know, the extension service in Nigeria is almost dead. As against the expectation of one extension agent to a few hundreds, 200-300 farmers, you are talking of 8,000, in some cases 15,000. There have been reports of one farmer to about, one extension agent to about 15,000 farmers. It's that bad. How can he do it? Regardless of what research finding, regardless of what he might want to translate to the farmers. If he does not have the time, he does not have all it takes to reach them, he may not be able to achieve that. And in AGRA's effort to transform agriculture from the rudiments of what it is subsistence, like many of us will say, to move them to commercial, to be able to get the best out of what they are doing. The extension system is being supported, and AGRA is supporting NARLS in Zaria, Nigerian Agric Extension and Research Liaison Services, which is the foremost extension institution in Nigeria, to train in conjunction with Sasakawa Global 2000. What AGRA does is to help to fashion out a new kind of extension system whereby you have what we call the village-based advisors, VBAs, and then the community-based facilitators, so that they are able to bring all this new development from AGRA to the level of the farmer. These are tested in Kaduna and Niger states. So far, the project has been moving on. We have grantees that we have supported over the years to get down there to do this. And this is where NESG comes in to help give legislative backing to a lot of these things that AGRA is doing for the farmers, so that nobody comes tomorrow. The progress that has been made just overnight destroys. You want to make it an institution, so to say, institutionalize the development so that it stands and continue to grow and continue to get better with time. Ladies and gentlemen, in summary, that is what I believe AGRA is out to do. Of course, let me conclude with this. AGRA has what is called PIATA. That is Partnership for Inclusive Agricultural Transformation in Africa. It is bringing everybody that have like minds together to help do agricultural transformation in Africa. We want to move from where we are to where we expect to be, such that ultimately African nations will be able to feed itself and become a net exporter of food. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Benga, for that wonderful opening remark. During the lifespan of this program, the NESG, in collaboration with AGRA, held several sensitization and advocacy workshops with the smallholder farmers in different geopolitical zones. And you needed to be there to hear the things that some of the farmers were complaining about. Some would say that they would buy fertilizer and they would find nails. The people would mix in nails with their fertilizers. Some would say that they don't even have yields because of bad seeds. So this public-private dialogue is much more needed than you can even imagine. So thank you very much for that wonderful opening remark, Dr. Benga Arukoyo. So we are now about to go to, if you look at the agenda, what we're supposed to have is a video on advocacy for the passage of the agribusiness bills. But we're going to be skipping that for now, and we're going to go straight to the technical presentation by Data Lead Africa on survey conducted on smallholder farmers' perception on the 3 agribusiness bills in Nigeria. This presentation is going to be made by Dr. Ayo Aru-Wolo of Data Lead Africa. Please put your hands together for him as he
Good morning once again. Okay, I'll be presenting our learning from the pre and post sensitization and advocacy we've been having with the smallholder farmers. The perception of the agribusiness leaders. We want to understand the perception of smallholder farmers on the 3 agribusiness bills. Well, what exactly what's their perception about these bills? How do they think this will be of benefit to them? And we use 60 smallholder farmers from the various geopolitical zones, and we have 5 geopolitical zones covered. The major question we want to answer is, are the farmers aware of the agribusiness bills and its imperatives? How will this be of benefit to them? What's the perception, and how exactly do they feel about this bill? So we looked at the percentage distribution of smallholder farmers that are not aware of the agribusiness bill, and we found out about 57% of smallholder farmers are not aware of these bills in the Northwest, 54% in North Central, about 53% in Southwest, about 59% in the Southeast, about 58% in the South-South. And if we look at it summarily, we're looking at about 56% of smallholder farmers not aware of what this bill is all about and how it can be of benefit to them. But if we take the 56% that are not aware, that means about 44% are aware of the bill. What exactly are they aware about? What do they know about the bill? We saw that the fertilizer bill, they are more aware of the fertilizer bill, followed by the seed bill. Not too much about the warehouse receipt bill. When we asked what they knew about the fertilizer quality control bill, most of them talked about it's a bill that will ensure that quality fertilizer is in the market. My colleague was talking about how some of them talked about nails being put into the fertilizer. Nails are added into the fertilizer to make it weigh up to the amount, up to the weight of what it's supposed to be. They felt the bill is going to help improve their farmers' yield. It's going to control sales of adulterated fertilizer, and it will also help in getting affordable fertilizer at affordable price. The bill will help farmers to know how to use fertilizers. And they also talk about the bill will provide a framework for punishing those who adulterate the fertilizer. What they felt would be the benefit of this bill to them is going to increase their yield, is going to increase their income, and it will also grant them more access. For the seed bill, 50% of the farmers are aware of the National Seed Council bill. And what they've understood about the bill is that it's going to give them access to quality seed, and it's going to regulate seed seller, ensure poor seed are not in the market, then also ensure that improved seeds are produced. Yes. But for the warehouse receipt bill, for those who are even aware, about 21% said they know about the seed are not in the market. The purpose of the receipt bill is to get quality seed, to increase farming productivity, to get quality fertilizer. So they kind of mix up what the warehouse receipt bill will do with what the fertilizer and the seed bill will do. When we ask them how satisfied are they with what's already in existing, the farmers are dissatisfied with lack of storage facilities and ready markets and the cost of inputs for their farming process. And what they think will be of great benefit to them is if they can have access to credit facilities, if the system can be improved so that they can make more profit, if they can have access to good inputs and access to quality seeds, and timely support from the government. So aside from their knowledge about the bill, we also looked at distribution of land by gender. We saw that 69% of the smallholder farmers have between 2.5 hectares of land and below, and a bit skewed along gender line. Only 15% of the female have access to that size of land, and above 5 hectares, just about 2%. And if we look at the income also, 75% of the smallholder farmers are having an annual income of about 500,000 and below. And just about 21% of females fall into that category. A summary of findings: the awareness of the agribusiness bill is still low. There's need to intensify sensitization so as to get their buy-in. We need more involvement, more partnership, more sensitization and advocacy in this regard. And farmers' access to credit facility, quality inputs are major needs for them. Hence the need to intensify the push for this bill, as this bill will be coming to provide this solution. Thank you for listening.
You can follow us at official NESG on Twitter, Instagram, and then on Twitter you can follow us with the hashtag FARMGAIN. Yes, so right about now, we're about to show you the video on advocacy for the passage of the 3 AGRA bills. Yes, so if we can just get everybody settled down.
In 25 years of intervening in agriculture, we have found some things don't work. Government interventions that does not have huge private sector support was a key issue. Agric viewed as the job of the rural poor, which was the traditional view of agriculture in our monolithic economy, was a pervasive paradigm. Give those smallholder farmers something to do as empowerment.
Green is the next oil. Go green, a patriotic slogan indeed. So why the schism between the farmers and the policymakers? Why the disconnect between the producers and the enablers? We travel to the green belt of Nigeria to investigate the problem at the roots and to begin a conversation into real solutions.
In 2007, when we were envisaging the Vision 2020, a big part of what we looked at in agriculture was to cause and drive a pivot in agriculture from agriculture for survival to agriculture as a business, and which was our advocacy for almost 7 years. That led up to a national summit on agriculture in 2014, where we then said, 2013, where we then said it was time to sit down and envisage what the future of agriculture will be. The agri-transformation agenda of the Jonathan's government came out of that summit, and the impetus we saw in private sector-led investments was a result of that. Early in 2015, we did a gap assessment on legislations in trying to reform the Nigerian economy, and we noted how there were many archaic laws within our national laws that hindered the ease of doing business, hindered the environment in which business could succeed. Those deficits led to us saying to ourselves that it was time to transform our laws. We counted 115 laws at that time that were outdated. In fact, some of the laws are so outdated that I'm sure even my grandfather, would have found them very old.
When we are talking about the bills that we are expecting our politicians and our governments to pass into law for us to favor our production, to favor our storage facilities, and also to empower farmers.
I think the main problem that affects most of what we're doing in the agri space is the challenge of policy. Okay? It's not always clear what government is doing, and when government is doing it, it has its impact on the private sector. In the area of fertilizers, we in FEPSAN have identified two of these government policies that have become a major problem for us. Subsidy administration. The way subsidies are administered in Nigeria has been a major limitation for the growth of the fertilizer industry. Unfortunately, you have a lot of stakeholders within the space, both in the private and public, that use the specific problems or challenges around the smallholder farmer to come up with all manner of projects and programs that aim to subsidize fertilizers. Well, the truth is that if you do an assessment of these programs, whether it's in the fertilizers, in the seeds, probably even in the warehousing, the same problem cuts across. There's always a problem in the way these programs are implemented, and they create a crowding out effect for the private sector.
I am a farmer by profession. I engaged in farming some years back, and partially it has been a bit good, but not too good, as a result of post-harvest loss that were incurred several times. As a farmer, you're expected to make ends meet from it. But due to the system we have ourselves into, we find it very difficult. And that is why I'm happy today people can actually hear our voice. People can actually feel our pain. It has been like that year to year. When you put on your effort to get something, at the end you get little or nothing. And we are looking at our government to come into this thing. We are looking at a system of which we have started this system but have not been actualized. That is the system of passing some bills, the issue of security, food security. And the only way to achieve this food security is to ensure that our post-harvest loss is being minimized. If we can be able to minimize our post-harvest loss, food security will be guaranteed. This country will have about 30% or more being wasted, of which if this thing is being put in place, one, it will encourage you as a farmer, two, it will boost your income. We are looking at these bills that we have put in place, and we are looking at the federal government, we're looking at this present administration, but we have one problem. We have just 3 bills. One, to reduce our post-harvest loss through storage. Two, to ensure that fertilizer will be available on time at a low rate yearly to grassroots farmers, not to portfolio farmers.
Three things that probably would be the revolution that we want in the agricultural space in Nigeria. If I can take them one by one. Seed in itself is it's the singular most important thing that could determine the yield. On one side, could also determine to specification what the processors need specifically, because at that time you start to talk about specifics that feed into certain production entities. So seeds is it's a very huge component in itself, and we cannot overestimate the need to have a sane seed sector in Nigeria, all with the essence of increasing productivity ensuring that we meet specifications in terms of raw materials, particularly for the processor on the side that use these as raw materials into their own process. If we come to fertilizer in itself is so I would say is as important, if not more important, than seed, because we cannot also underestimate the need to put nutrition into the soil. What we have seen today is the nutrients in the soil have been depleted in terms of continuous use of the same fields without necessarily replenishing the soil nutrient as it affects the different crops in itself. So you also realize that different crops require different fertilizer need. So typically they need to have a sane and a very regulated fertilizer system also. It's pretty much very, very important. And on top of that, if you look at the entire value chain in itself, you see that seed and fertilizer, they are probably at the beginning of the value chain. But every time we say value chain, it means that it's a mix of several actors across the process. And as we look at that, the warehousing also becomes a very, very critical part of it. So maybe towards the end, but it reinforces the value that is being provided by the quality seeds, by the quality fertilizer at the beginning. So warehousing is where you can have farmers or owners of commodities to be able to hold, store, grade, guarantee quality, guarantee quantity of the different commodities before they then decide to sell. So typically a mix of those three, in my opinion, would be the revolution that we need in the agricultural space in Nigeria.
7 years now, my husband not very well. Now this thing I will take the lead.
And so what we thought we would do was we would go into a partnership with the National Assembly and the Nigerian Bar Association section on business law. So the NESG and these two institutions formed what we call NASBA, the National Assembly Enabling Business Roundtable, with the primary objective of reforming legislative instruments that were required to unlock Nigeria's economic potential. Of course, some of those laws are directly tied to the sector we're discussing today, which is agriculture. Nigerian agriculture historically have suffered from broken value chains, where the smallholder farmer cannot access inputs and skills, which has led to huge post-harvest losses. The food system in Nigeria is losing about 57 to 60% of all we produce is lost before we can process and transform the primary produce into products to market. This then accounts for huge losses. So whilst we are number one in yam production in the world, cassava production in the world, when you look at what we actually trap as economic value added, it's very, very, very little. So NESG and AGRA came together with NASBA and some of the key stakeholders to identify some critical bills in the value chain, particularly the primary input components, to see whether we could drive and transform what was happening in those broken value chains. The first area of input was for fertilizer. Most of Nigeria's so-called arable land have very low soil fertility because of poor use of fertilizer and lack of adequate fertilizer types across the country. And so we thought there was a crucial need first to improve the legislation to control the input in terms of production, the quality of fertilizer in circulation, quality of the application of fertilizer in circulation, to deal with the question of soil fertility. I always say you begin the question of food security with soil security, because that determines everything else. And of course, once you have great soil fertility, then comes the natural question of the quality of seeds. Unfortunately, Nigeria suffers from very low application of high-yield seedlings. The last count, we were doing about 2% of our entire smallholder farmers are using high-yield seedlings, which means that even though we are hitting this so-called big numbers in agriculture, in yams, in some of the grains we have seen, we took rice from 2.7 million metric tons to almost 5.7 million metric tons in 3 years. We're doing it at 2% high-yield seedlings. Imagine what we'll do at 10% or 15% or 20%. So the second thing we will tackle within the AGRA, NESG, NASBA partnership was the question of control of seeds. One is improving the production of quality seeds, regulating quality seeds in Nigeria, and ensuring that there is a pervasive use of high-yield seedlings to drive our productive targets in terms of where Nigeria wants to go in the strategic crops we've chosen within the new agriculture policy.
Burinmu da 'yan siyasa ba mu hau layin zaɓe su ba mu ba. Su kawo mana magani na noma da muke, su kawo mana iri, su kawo mana taki, mu zo mu zuba a gonar mu to mu shine babban zaɓen mu to ko ma wane ya biya mana bukata mu ma za mu biya masa cikin yardar Allah.
Muna kira 'yan majalisunmu su dube mu da idan rahama domin babu wani abu wanda muke da shi wanda ifi noman nan da shi muka dogara kuma shi muka sa a gaba su taimaka su yi doka su samu mana da waɗannan abubuwa wanda zai inganta nomanmu.
Riga an rena mu mun zama gugan yasa in aka yashe ruwan ba mai sake neman mu a yanzu a ƙasar nan ba mu da ingantaccen iri ba mu da taki ba mu da sitan da za mu dinga zuba amfanin gonan mu yanzu a ƙasar nan don cin mutunci ga tumaturi ne kowa ya san na noma shi yanzu idan ya sati ɗaya ban sayar ba da gunda zan kai shi akwai wulakancin da ya fice wannan.
The last legislation we thought was crucial was what we did was to deal with the value chain, and a big part of the value chain was warehouses. Nigeria is losing a lot of value in storage that is coming from the absence of warehouses. Resourcing and financing warehouses has become tricky because of the absence of collateral. Collateral has become difficult because warehouses cannot issue warehouse receipts. So one of the bills that is under the NASBA review is the bill that relates to warehouse receipt systems, which for the first time will allow us to collateralize warehouse receipts, which makes warehouses bankable for the purposes of managing agriculture storage. We think these three bills, the fertilizer, seed, and warehouse receipt system bills, will not just have a transformative effect on the value chains, but will close a lot of the portions of the value chains that are broken. So what have we done so far? We've done extensive advocacy on the bills. The NASBA process by itself, because it brings together actors to do the technical review of the bills. It allows for expert input that sometimes the lawmakers do not have to be available to the lawmakers first to discuss the multi-stakeholder perspective. So in the NASBA process, we deliver policy briefs so that ensures that the stakeholders are fully understand the technical nature of these bills, but also the economic impact of these bills. Those briefs are also supported with economic imperatives so that the economic impact of a bill, because sometimes people view laws as if you're just writing words. Well, these words translate into legal framework. This legal framework gives confidence that investors need to put their money into seeds or into fertilizer or into warehouses. And what we think is that within these three bills, we'll unlock billions of dollars of investments that will open up this sector to opportunity.
The National Agricultural Seed Act number 72 of 1992 is presently undergoing amendment in the National Assembly. It was passed at the time and sent to Mr. President, but the assent was declined. It was actually not assented to because of the said conflict between Seed Act number 72 of 1992 and another bill, another act called a Variety Release Bill number 33 of 1987. That was why the president denied assent to it. And the bill was returned. It was sent to the ministry, it was sent to us, and it was sent back to the National Assembly. And we have been working with the National Assembly to ensure that that portion is actually fine-tuned in such a way that the president will assent to it. But it's very important for me to mention that the two bills, we have been using that bill for a long time. We've been working together with the bill. But because of this particular portion, the president denied access. And we have done what we should do in terms of talking to the National Assembly, and the National Assembly is actually working on it. It has been passed again by the House of Representatives and sent again to the Senate for their own work so that it can be sent.
My name is David Davis, and I'm the youth leader representing ASAPIN. This is a community for small-scale farmers, and as the youth leader, I would like to speak for the youth in ASAPIN. We have, for the period of time, been able to gather some youths that are willing to go into farming, but they have been running it on a very small scale, and which is not motivating enough. The youth, when you talk about youth, we really want to do something that is really captivating. We want to do something that is very elaborate, and when the product they are getting is not enough for them to go into a bigger or larger scale of farming, they remain as a small-scale farmer, and that's why we are here to see how the government can also benefit the ASAPIN youth.
Where certain activities fall off the radar of their own regulatory purview, you require additional regulation again to address those gaps. This led to FSS 2020 coming up with the initiative that in that kind of environment, you require the National Assembly to enact new or additional regulations, or in the form of legislation that will now address these other gaps that have been identified in the regulatory environment.
My question is, you have mentioned the pains, but there is one great pain you have not mentioned, and it's seriously paining farmer. That is market. You produce, you have good all these requirements, but at the end of the day, you go to market and come back happy, and happy like the other farmers who were seriously worried.
This workshop has shown the farmers that there are organizations and people who empathize with them, because they know these problems in different pockets across different clusters. But coming under one roof we've been able to come up with resolutions that capture the pains of all farmers generally. Like I said during one of the training programs, whether you're a farmer in Sokoto, or in Kaduna, or in Lagos, or in Port Harcourt, you all have the same problem of fake seeds and fake fertilizers. So this workshop has made it clear to the farmers that all farmers, irrespective of tribe or race, have the same problems and need to come together to solve the problems collectively. And they need to come together with one voice to put pressure on lawmakers to pass the bills in their favor. So today has opened up, the minds of the farmers, and it's opened their eyes to the fact that they are one, and in unity they can make things happen.
Arebe from Kura Local Government, Kano State. I am a farmer. I do farm rice and tomatoes. So due to what we are campaigning on our sensitization based on farmers. We are here to fight on our rights so that the government will be able to enhance us good productivity in our farming, in good quantitative and qualitative fertilizers and seed. Because of this bad production, we have low yield. That is what we are facing. We have many problems that we are facing in this country. So we are calling on the government and the House of Rep, all leaders, they should please help us and assist us in order to make profits, so that when we make the profit, no one can be poor in this nation. Everyone will be rich.
And so, it is to be all hands on deck, literally, if we are to progress the conversation, of which the focal point is that this time around, the Agriculture Bill will be passed, as like the crossing of a Rubicon. We see that it is time to exchange present realities, like a monolithic economy and small-scale segregated farming, for strategic, collective, and interdisciplinary practices. Only then will we be able to realize the huge potential that is our agro-industry, and indeed, everyone can be rich.
The AGRA NESG advocacy program has gone across the country to sensitize farmers, smallholder farmers, users, sellers, producers, everybody across the value chain for fertilizer, for seeds and warehouses. First, as to the implication of the passage of this bill, the positive impact of this bill, why they, as national stakeholders, support these bills. And then, of course, all that has translated into engaging the National Assembly, the Senate and House committees on the bills to ensure that everybody is ready and poised to support its speedy passage. This, we think, is a crucial process in transformation of agriculture, because we're not leaving the business of agriculture to people that don't get it now. We are all engaging to ensure that those that need to pass our laws understand that these laws will make a difference and will drive the change that we need. So we thank AGRA and all our partners for coming along. Thank you.
But before I invite the discussants for the roundtable to obviously discuss, we appreciate the fact that there are a lot of questions because there's been a lot of presentations. So all questions will be answered after the roundtable. Yes, so that I can just keep everything at home. So I know that most of us might have a lot of questions. You can just write them down. Then after the roundtable, we will treat all your questions. All the Dr. Ayo Arowolo is still here, and then we still have a lot of people that are available for you to answer your questions. So right now we're going to be moving on to the roundtable discussion. The discussion is, according to our agenda, strengthening policy environments for fertilizer systems, seed systems, and warehouse receipt systems in Nigeria. In brackets, a good mix of CSO, private sector, government sector, and NESG stakeholders. Now, this session is to be anchored by Mrs. Feisayo Fatono Ajayi, She is the head think tank operations in the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. Please put your hands together for her, Shi.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for your time to attend this dialogue today. I will now move ahead to call our panelists to invite them to join this session, and then we can get the ball rolling. At some point in time, we will open the discussions to the floor. Okay, is this better? Okay, so I'm saying that I will invite our panelists up to join, and then we will start. I also wanted to let us know that at some point in time, we will open the discussions to the floor, and people will have the time to ask questions, seek clarification, and also make contribution. So at this point in time, I am pleased to invite Mr. Aminu Usman, who is the legal advisor, as well as head legal unit for FSS 2020 Secretariat. Please, a round of applause for him. I am also pleased to invite Mr. Yes, please, it's free seating style. I'm also pleased to invite Mr. Agama Emomoti, who is the head registration and infrastructure department at the Securities and Exchange Commission. Thank you for coming. Last but not the least, I have the pleasure to invite Ambassador Jayola Lewu, who is an ambassador of SEEDAN, that is the Seed Enterprise Association of Nigeria. Please, a round of applause for the ambassador. Thank you very much, sir. We've run through a couple of presentations this morning explaining the concepts behind these bills. Also shared the video that you watched, which really explains most of the work that has gone into trying to make sure that we pass these 3 bills before the life of the 8th Assembly runs through. I think it will be instrumental and important to explain the journey so far, let you know where these bills are, where they are within the legislative cycle. The fertilizer bill has been passed both by the Senate and the House of Assembly as at March 2019 this year. We just need to send it across for presidential assent. The warehouse bill has been passed by Senate and is awaiting the 3rd reading at the House of Representatives. The seed bill has been passed by both houses since April 2019 and is awaiting presidential assent. Now we are running a race towards ensuring that all of these things are accomplished before the life cycle of the 8th Assembly ends. So I will now move into the panel discussions, and everyone here is representing one part or another, but ideally what is happening is that we are trying to create an ecosystem that allows all these inputs things to flow efficiently. And there is no way you want to uphold seed as more superior to fertilizer or fertilizer as more superior to the warehousing. They all have their functions, and working together in a coordinated ecosystem is what we want to achieve at the end of the day, not only to just increase agricultural productivity in Nigeria, but also to be able to affect the lives of millions of smallholders in the nation Nigeria. So to kick off, I'm going to first ask that what do you think, Mr. Aminu, why is it important for us to get these bills passed and begin to implement them? Why is it so important for the fertilizer bill? I'd like Mr. Agama to also respond to that from the warehouse perspective, and I'm hoping that, Ambassador, you can also answer that question from the perspective of seed.
Thank you very much. The presentation that has been made this morning and the opening remarks, as well as the welcome remarks by the Director General of the NESG, has given, I think, sufficient context for me to just say that when you look at the critical gaps in terms of the regulatory framework for transformation of agriculture in Nigeria, then it is imperative that this legislations be passed by the National Assembly and put in place to provide that necessary enabling environment for the transformation that we are hoping to see in the agricultural sector of the Nigerian economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. My name is Emimotimi Agamana. I work with the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. One of the very important goals of the SEC with regards to our Capital Market Master Plan, a 10-year Capital Market Master Plan ending 2025, was to see how the commodity exchange ecosystem can be revamped, resuscitated, and thereby leading to the diversification of the Nigerian economy. And by so doing, what the SEC decided to do, one of the very key aspects of it, is the issue of financing of the farmers. And the sure means of financing the farmers is through the warehouse receipts. How do you get the warehouse receipts in such a way that it becomes an authenticated instrument, both for finance unlocking, trading, and collateral? And so the SEC went about this business in a way that will have a relationship with every party that's involved to cause this to happen. By so doing, we will have been able to strengthen the ecosystem in order that the value chain for agriculture, end to end, will be fully taken care of. And that is why it is very, very important that all of these bills are passed, because what that will do, especially in the aspect of the warehouse receipt, is to provide the issuance of a warehouse receipt that is authentic, that has all of the characteristics that makes it bankable. Because the core reason why the warehouse receipts appear to be almost useless now is because of the quality of the storage of these commodities. We have warehouses all over Nigeria, warehouses by individuals and government agencies. But do these warehouses meet international standards? Do they have all of the infrastructure that will allow for you to be able to grade properly the contents in these warehouses? Especially when you know that Nigeria has so many products. There is hardly any part of this country that you do not have a commercial quantity of a particular product. How best will you be able to store those products and issue a receipt on those products that the banks will accept as a collateral and will also be able to aid the farmers to unlock capital and finance, which is the core of their business? Hence, it becomes so important that the National Assembly, passes the warehouse receipt, warehouse regulatory agency bill, so as to allow a body that has the concentration of regulating such facilities, such infrastructure, as a key part of the the commodities ecosystem. Hence, it is so vital for us to see that to happen. Because once we are able to do that, we are able to achieve liquidity on the side of the exchanges. How do we achieve liquidity on the side of the exchanges? We are able to get the farmers to grow more. And when we have the farmers growing more, there is a possibility of aggregation. And once there's a possibility of aggregation, then it means that the off-takers know and confidently are aware that no matter what quantity of commodity or product that they need, there is a place to get them from. And the only place to store that is the warehouse.
It's my turn, I guess. Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As far as seed is concerned, what you should understand about life and about a nation is that a nation can never exist where there are no laws, because human beings prefer freedom, even if they are riding on top of each other. But if there are laws that will control the movement of people and ensure that they don't ride upon each other, that country can have a harmonious relationship within the country. yes, laws are very important in the seed industry because of what was shown on the TV, on the screen this morning, and what had been said by the AGRA representative and even the chairman of the Economic Summit group, whereby we have been told that there are so many seeds in this country that are not quality seeds. There's so much adulteration of seeds. And if we don't regulate and have a law that will control the flow of such seeds, the country will never have the yield that it requires. We are told that in the next few years, maybe 30 years to come, or 20, Nigeria may be the third largest country in terms of population in the world. How do we feed this large population if we don't have the seeds that are high quality, that will give us the greatest yield, that will make us have enough food on the table for the large population that is yet to come? We cannot afford to have anybody selling seeds without any regulation. Unfortunately, despite the efforts by the National Agricultural Seed Council, whose efforts have spread so far, but the organization requires more experienced, quality people in terms of numbers to cover this large country, so that whatever regulation that comes up, they'll be able to implement them. Also, we have farmers that don't even know that there are quality seeds that are supposed to be planted. They recycle, as they said, their own seeds. The research findings are not spread enough because of lack of adequate number of extension workers in this country. And the state governments, while some are working hard to help farmers to make sure that they have quality seeds, there are other state governments that are not too keen in agriculture. They prefer to have construction contracts going on where they can make their money, unfortunately leaving the poor farmers fending for themselves. If we are able to have a good legislation, which sometimes we do have in this country, the major problem is that of implementation. Who are those enforcing those regulations? It's one thing to have regulations, the other thing is to get the regulations or laws enforced so that the objectives of passing such laws will be obtained. Unfortunately, we have had series of people who carry out a lot of adulterated seeds in order to make quick kill, to make quick money. Perhaps working on taking advantage of the gap between the demand for good seeds and the supply, where the demand may be more than the supply, and people take advantage of that gap and start to sell seeds that are impure, with low quality, that will give you low yield. I was enthused when I saw on the screen when somebody was talking about fertilizer, probably more important than seeds. I think he's saying the opposite. No matter how important fertilizer may be, if you have very bad seeds, pour all the fertilizer in the world on those seeds, the seeds will not give you any good yield at all. So, you have to have good quality seeds before you can talk of fertilizer.
Yeah.
Will help it to boost up.
Yes, sir. Thank
so
you.
we need legislation that will control the importation, exportation, movement, or whatever of bad seeds, so that we have good seeds for high quality yield in this country.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I'd like to follow up with you, Mr. Emomotimi. On the warehouse bill, you know that there are some issues and contentions, especially with debates around duplication of efforts, debates around weighting systems and measures, as well as price transparency. How do you think that these can be resolved by the enactment of this bill?
Yeah, thank you once again. Well, I have been part of the stakeholders reviewing that bill for the opt-in time. And one thing is clear. What we need in this country is an efficient legislation and efficient implementation. When we talk about duplication as to what? Yes, we have NISPRI, and we've had other agencies in government that have been saddled with some of these responsibilities. But clearly, in the modern age, we find out that ministries are meant for policy formulation. In terms of implementation of basic, work with regards to certain areas of governance, it should revolve around, a compact agency. Weights and measures had been in existence for whatever time anybody can remember. But how many of them do actually work? So it's important that we look at what will this bring to the table. Usually when laws are formulated, sometimes laws are formulated out of carvings from different areas to create an institution that has a compact nature towards the fulfillment of a particular objective. And that is what the Warehouse Regulatory Agency Bill seeks to do. The warehouses we have in this country are so many, like I said earlier, so many, but what is the usefulness of these warehouses that we are talking about? Do they provide that collateral? Do they provide that hedge for the farmer? Does the farmer even know where they are? And sometimes, some warehouses are situated 20 kilometers away from the farm. How else? Why would any farmer risk his energy to take those commodities to those warehouses when they are not even particularly situated for the particular products that are created or grown around those areas? So in terms of conflict, I do not see where there is a conflict. What I see is a synergy that could be productive, a synergy that will lead to efficiency, a synergy that will be useful to the farmers, a synergy that's important for the commodities exchanges, is a synergy that is so important for financing. And that is why it is important to look back and ask ourselves, all of the agricultural interventions that the central bank has been doing, how else are you able to get back those monies to the government coffers? One of the ways of doing that is to ensure that those commodities pass through a commodities exchange. And the only way commodities can pass through commodities exchange is when you find that they are properly accommodated in a warehouse that is of standard, and you can issue receipts on them. You can actually use all of those interventions via the system rather than the central bank doing it directly through the commercial banks to be able to do what? To increase the financing in the economy and increase financing for the smallholder farmers, which is our responsibility as a nation. In order to increase food production, in order to increase export, in order to increase foreign exchange earnings, all of these are things that we need to do. All of these building blocks actually are important. But when you have good seed, good product, and you do not have good warehouse to store those commodities, then we are going to back to square one, and farmers will be the loser at the end.
Thank you very much. So we are very much agreed and aligned on the fact that without synergy, an effective ecosystem cannot be achieved. Now I'm going to come to a question that I am hoping that both Mr. Aminu and the ambassador can jump into, because it has both sides of the question would will speak to seed as well as fertilizer. During the course of discussions this morning and on the documentary that we watched, one thing came out clearly, is that whilst we've tried to engender and encourage private sector participation in both the seed and the fertilizer industry, you find out that every stakeholder in the private sector has a different view on subsidies. So my question will then be, what, in your opinion, do you think should be done about subsidies? How will the two bills be affected by subsidy? Is the growth enhancement scheme still valid? Is there anything to be picked from there? How can private sector leverage on all these and ensure that while we want private sector to take a lead, private sector is actually still not crowded out? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me preface whatever I'm going to say by properly situating myself in this dialogue, that I'm coming from Financial System Strategy 2020. And Financial System Strategy is an entity that comprises of Securities and Exchange Commission, the Central Bank, and other financial sector regulatory agencies. So, in that context, there is a common thread that runs through these bills that we are discussing at this very moment, in the sense that it is critical for our agricultural practice to be modernized and make it look like it is a more business-oriented activity than just something that you do as a hobby or as a pastime. So that now, again, if you follow from what Mr. Gama has been saying, Central Bank pumps in a lot of money into the sector, and then now you ask yourself, what impact or what outcome has resulted as a result of that kind of funding intervention? It's in such huge amounts of money, and then when you look at it, you can't see commensurate translation in the sector. When you look at specifically, for instance, fertilizer. Fertilizer is an essential input in agricultural undertaking. You pay for fertilizer as an input into one. Are you paying for the right input? So what the legislation is essentially trying to do is to make sure that there are standards in terms of making sure that you put in fertilizer that will generate or lead to realization of the necessary yield from a particular seed. It's not all fertilizer that you're going to just apply for any seed and then you expect to see the yield that you're seeing. Of course, there are also concerns about destroying the soil itself by applying the wrong fertilizer. There are concerns about what else comes into the food system by the time it is ingested by a human being as a result of the wrong application of wrong chemicals in the name of fertilizer, and you find that instead of ingesting nutrients or nutritional food into the system, you are rather ingesting things that will lead to diseases, cancer, and things like that. So the regulatory environment is to be worked on in such a way that most of these issues are addressed, whether it is an issue of compliance, and then we look for self-regulatory compliance to standards instead of having somebody to enforce the law. And I believe this kind of engagement that we're having here this morning, afternoon, is to facilitate that kind of common understanding, synergy, and understanding that this is a regulatory framework in which all of us are going to come to it and undertake our diverse and different activities with the expectation that there is one outcome, or there is one objective, or there is one result that we are hoping to see as a result of our diverse and various engagements in the agricultural sector. Thank you.
What will be your view, Ambassador?
Yes, you asked questions. One is the issue of subsidy, and the other one is the issue of GS. Okay. As far as subsidy is concerned, I am for subsidy, particularly of inputs. Because if you look at the standard of living of our farmers, how many of them can afford to buy a tractor? How many of them can afford to buy the implements which will be used for farm production, where you need to put your seed and put your fertilizer? How many of them can afford to buy the required amount of chemical to get the highest yield? Like we're told this morning, somewhere in Taraba they got 14 metric tons per hectare. In some places, 7 tons per hectare. It's not just manna from heaven. You need to put the right quantity, quality, and proportion of fertilizer that will be needed. And fertilizer, as we're saying, is not just the coat that will fit everybody. It has to be done in a way that it meets the requirement of the specific soil and the specific seed or plant, and not just 15, 15, 15 for every type of crop or land. Where does the poor farmer that Nigeria depends upon, particularly the small scale? We depend more on the small scale farmers. The policy so far, as I see it, more on the small scale than the large scale, because they believe that the small scale give more employment opportunities. Where will they get enough fund to get the correct, to be able to buy the right seeds, the right quantity, quality, and proportion of fertilizers and chemicals, and also the technical know-how that they may have to employ by experts, either from the breeder or from agronomists and so on and so forth. So without the assistance of government to give them the, what we call a sort of incentive to prop them up, it will be very difficult for them to meet their requirements. Secondly, don't stop me yet. Don't stop me yet. There is no country in the Western world that does not give subsidy to their farmers, even America. I remember some years ago, in Paris, the farmers brought out their tractors and bulldozers and occupied the streets of Paris because government wanted to stop subsidy. Maybe Nigerians should carry out their cutlasses when such things come up. Thank you.
Even though I'll come back to you on the growth enhancement scheme. Mr. Emomotimi, I thought that this is part of what the warehouse bill is supposed to help address. It's supposed to allow the potential for the smallholder farmer to become included in the financial space. I thought that part of this was to allow him be able to leverage funding because he has these goods in the warehouse where he gets the receipt. So the question then is it really true that the farmers can't afford this? Caveat, I am not pro or against subsidies, so I would just like to play the devil's advocate here. Then we'll come back to you, Mr. Aminu.
Well, afford what? That's the question first before we move in.
Inputs.
Yes, the truth clearly is this. The small farm holder is not as buoyant as you see him, as you think him. The small farm holder is an individual like you and myself that has responsibilities for other things as well as the farm. So the farm is the next other child of the small farm holder. So when you think that the small farm holder to be a buoyant person and as such is able to afford everything that you need for a comprehensive agriculture, then you are wrong. Agreed that the warehouse receipt system will afford him the opportunity to have a receipt, a collateral, a backup on the commodities he had produced. That will enable him get money The current situation we have, you have merchants and middlemen, brokers all over the place, doing what? Buying these commodities even before they are grown at peanuts, at prices that are ridiculously low and insulting even to the farmer's effort. So that money he gets is not enough for him to do anything. But when you are able to unlock finance via the financial system, and has been proposed severally that the central bank and the commercial bank should be able to provide single-digit financing for small farm holders. Because if you look at the interest rates within our financial system, then it becomes suicidal to think that a small farm holder or any farmer of that, for that matter, is able to unlock finance that will assist him in planting more or increasing production. So clearly, the warehouse receipt, the idea of unlocking finance, it's generally known worldwide. In Mexico and South America, it's a major tool of financing. And people are holding on to it because it's flexible and it is easily amenable to the situation of the farmer. So clearly, the warehouse receipt agency bill, which will bring about the warehouse receipt, will aid and assist this to happen. But hold on. Far back 2012, the then Minister for Trade and Investment, Olusegun Aganga, right, set up a presidential committee for the warehouse receipt system. It was launched. I was a member of that committee with fanfare at the Hilton, and we tried to start up something. Unfortunately, apparently because of the lack of a legislation to drive that. And also, beyond all of this, what is government's role in the commodities that have been produced? Is there a policy, a conscious policy of mandating those commodities to be traded on an exchange? Because what we are talking about is transparency. The Shylocks of the agricultural sector will not want this to happen. Because if you do so, what you will be doing is that you'll be cutting off their bread and butter. And, of course, making the farmers rich. That is not their intention. Pulling them out of poverty, that is not their intention. Diversifying our economy, that is not their intention. So, a legislation that will bring about a system that works is important for us to institute this under regulation, and once it is not complied with, it becomes a violation of the law. And if it becomes a violation of the law, then there should be sanctions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mino, you had a response to that?
Not necessarily a response. Rather, when you look at subsidy to agriculture in Nigeria, if I do a comparison, for instance, with the petroleum sector of the economy, we have not technically or scientifically studied subsidy to see how the smallholder farmer, we can say, benefits from subsidy. For me, if you leave it to me, I will even tell you that it is the smallholder farmer that is subsidizing the government, because I have not had, from the time that I have been engaged in examining this issue to see how we could get the regulatory framework to become an enabling environment, I have not had an instance in which a smallholder farmer is given waivers from paying taxes. At the same time, I have not heard of a smallholder farmer getting access to credit at single-digit interest rate. I have not heard of smallholder farmers, because essentially farming is a private sector engagement. It's not a government engagement. So the necessary environment that the public sector should put in place is not there for you to say that actually a smallholder farmer benefits from subsidy. So the question is, before you even get to the issue of whether subsidy should remain, or is it even there? So, and you find that, as the ambassador said, when you look at the other framework that have been put to make sure that some of these things are made available to the farmer, again, we have not evaluated. For instance, when you look at fertilizer, you look at tractors, when you look at the cost, I assure you, by the time a proper evaluation is carried out, it will not be up to 10% of the requirement of any smallholder farmer for any farming activity or for any farming season. So it is so negligible that it is almost not there. Thank you.
Sorry, I left out your second part of your
Go
question,
ahead.
which is the GES thing. GES was a form of subsidy to farmers because even relatively free fertilizer and free seeds. And for the first 2 years that the program was being implemented, everything worked well. Why? Because the government that established it ensured that it supported it with the fund that was necessary to get the seeds, get the fertilizer, and the chemicals. The moment there was a change of government, and as usual, the Nigerian way, there has to be a policy somersault. Unfortunately, that's why the GS has now failed, because it was never supported by the funds that was necessary to keep it ongoing. So any government that is serious, that wants to support farmers with subsidy, must be ready to make sure that they support such policy with the required resources so that it will be sustainable. If it is not sustainable, it is not worth even starting it at all. Thank you.
Thank you. So essentially, there are learning points from GES, is what I take out from here. Now, when we were having these discussions about the fertilizer, we noted that soil testing and fertilizer trials will be very critical to the success of implementation, so that we are not using the NPK 15-15-15 that Ambassador spoke about. Question then is that whose responsibility should this be? Should it be the private sector? Should it be government? Or should it be by donor support? What will be the pros and cons of choosing any one of this or a combination? What do you think can work around, just so that we know what fertilizers are out, what recommendations, to be able to update and ensure that we do not denigrate our soils?
Thank you very much. That is why we're having this dialogue, because it's a regulatory framework to encourage all participants in the system now to know that there is a standard, and you work towards that standard. You don't do anything less than the norm that has been established by way of legislation, by way of rules, by way of guidelines that will be issued. For instance, in the commodities ecosystem that Mr. Agama is referring to, it's not everything that you will just grow and take to a warehouse and say that, look, you have a commodity that is in the warehouse. You have to meet certain criteria, there are standards, there are so many things that would inform what is it that would go into a warehouse, what would go into a receipt that you could use to obtain credit or to sell or for off-taker. There are so many things that are embedded in the 3 bills that we are discussing here that I don't think if we have enough time for which, within which we are going to look at each and every aspect of what is contained in those bills for us to be able to do justice to the question.
Thank you. Mr. Agama, you had rightly noted synergy. I just wanted to ask, is there any streamlining of the exact roles that CBN, for example, should be playing, the SEC itself will be playing, as well as the Ministry of Trade and Investment, that allows there not to be any overlapping or saying, look, this is my space, don't cross the boundary here and stuff, in terms of synergy?
Yeah, right. In terms of synergy, the truth about all of this is that we are all government agencies. There's none of these agencies that is private sector. So it's like having children from one father. Will you now start fighting each other? You know your boundaries. And of course, sometimes your boundaries may overlap. But what happens in such situations is that you come together and ask yourself, where does my capacity start and where does it end? Once you know yourself, and then you deal with the issues from there. For example, prior to this time, the SEC has a responsibility, sort of,
for the regulation or monitoring of warehouses. Warehouses, not all warehouses, warehouses that issue or that can issue receipts that can be traded on the floor of an estate. Because, why are we interested? Once a receipt has been issued and it can be traded on the floor of an estate, it becomes a financial instrument. And being a financial instrument, it is important that it takes the integrity of both the warehouse and the regulator. So that is why it's so crucial for us that the warehouse where those commodities will be stored should be managed by a qualified collateral manager. And the collateral manager that, certifies a warehouse must be regulated by the SEC, because registration is the hallmark of regulation. So we need to register them to have, what we call the fit and proper persons test towards that particular function. Hence, the SEC comes in. So if a receipt that has been certified by a warehouse is issued for trading, then the SEC must have an oversight over that instrument, over the trading of the instrument, and over the transparent nature of that particular transaction. So, whatever it is that, will become an overlap, it's something that, of course, can be dealt with. However, it's important also to note that as the current warehouse regulatory agency bill is, the SEC and including the CBN are both board members of that agency. So where comes an overlap? I am related to you, you are related to me, then where is the fight? So a lot of times these things are hyped up so as to create confusion. But as government agencies, we have a responsibility to make sure that the system works. And once the system works, it means that there must be a key in. And that key in is what government is all about. Every government agency has a relationship with another government agency. Every function has a relationship with another function. But is there a key in the functions that these institutions perform? It is when there is a key in that you won't find erosion and you won't find dripping in water. So the important thing, again, is that agencies that are involved in this ecosystem must ask themselves, what is the overall objective? What do we intend and hope to achieve? If what we intend to achieve is for the good of this nation and the education of the economy and agricultural upliftment, then it is important that we come together with one voice, thinking together with one thought, and creating a synergy that will bring about an improvement in the Nigerian economy.
Okay, so essentially we are saying that the synergy is already on. It's one big family, and there's coherence, there's key in, and there's no ambiguity. That's very good to know. Thank you. So my follow-up question now will be on seeds and fertilizer. We all know that the bills that needed to be passed are just one side of the equation. There is the other side of the equation that requires adoption. We know that in Nigeria that seed adoption is just about 10%. We also know that adoption of fertilizer use, for instance, Nigeria in the savannah zone uses only about 4 to 7 kilograms of fertilizer per hectare. What do we need to do to facilitate adoption, knowing fully well that we have a fragile and broken extension service system? Is this something that should be taken up by the private sector, or are there ways to bridge the gap, have hybrids between the private sector and the public sector to push adoption on both sides?
Well, adoption is a function of awareness campaign. Adoption is a function of sensitization, a function of making sure that both the government sector and private sector work hand in hand in this regard.
We are told that there is an extension services department of the Ministry of Agriculture, and that should also extend to all the states and local government areas.
dissemination of research findings cannot be done if they are left in the files and cupboards of research institutes or in the files of ministries and departments. They have to be brought out to the farmers through the use, particularly extension services, through the use of farmers' cooperative societies, community groups, by sensitizing them. I remember in those days when I was a young man, in the old northern Nigeria, I come from Kaba in Kogi State, which was part of the old northern Nigeria. The Sadana of Sokoto was very emphatic about having farmers well informed in his region. There used to be Land Rovers that used to go out showing screen like you did for us about agriculture, giving educating the farmers in local languages, which is very important, in local languages, so that they will know what is available, what is modern, what will help them in their farming operations. What stops us from continuing with that type of, or bringing it back, so that farmers up to the grassroots level, to the hamlet level, not even village level, we know what is going on. Particularly, to be put in radios, television. Those in the villages may not have, everybody may not have television, but at least most of them carry radios. And now with these cell phone that everybody has, all those media will be very useful in disseminating the right information needed to help farmers in this area. So the private sector too, that require inputs from farmers for their industries, processing and whatever, also can key in ensuring that they also make farmers aware of the quality of inputs they require and how to get them. So it requires a synergy between the government and the private sector to do that. Thank you.
All I will add to what the ambassador has said is that it's need to shift or recalibrate the paradigm in such a way that the private sector is in the driving seat, whether it is the farmer cooperatives or individual farmers or umbrella bodies representing farmers should be in the driving seat of this engagement than the public sector.
Thank you very much. So we begin to realize that we are on a countdown for these 3 bills. I will now ask each of you, what do you think needs to be done to ensure that these bills are passed? Some waiting for assent of the president, another one is waiting for 3rd reading with the House of Representatives. Once we take this, we will then open the floor to people to ask questions and make comments, and then we'll be taking those round so that we can bring it to a close. I will start with you, Mr. Amino. He wants to defer to the ambassador first, so go ahead.
No problem. What should be done? I was reading, I think on Sunday, one of the newspapers, where the president of the Senate told us that each bill cost about 2-point-something billion to pass. How on earth would that be? No wonder so much of our money goes into this so-called National Assembly, and such money does not go to farmers. And that's why we are poor. The World Bank report of the 7th of April said that Nigeria is in the lowest decile of social development of Africa. Nigeria, we are now the poorest among the poor in Africa. This is a shame. To pass a bill will cost 2-point-something billion. let them, for God's sake, if it is possible, to even forget about paying money to pass the bill. Let them use. Why are they there? Why are they getting 30-point-something million every month? Why should we be paying for passing bills, which they are supposed to pass? That's their job. So let them forget about any money for passing bills. Let them pass the bill. Number one. Number two, let there be a great synergy between the presidency and the National Assembly, whereby both of them are on the same level as far as meeting of minds, consensus are concerned about passing laws that will be of paramount importance for the development and the good and the good standard of living for our nation. Thank you.
Well, the ambassador has spoken. However, it's important to note that we must, as a country, review our system. It is really heartbreaking to hear that to pass a bill will cost 2-point-something billion. That's, for me, it's terrible. Then, the question is, what then do we need to do to pass bills without having to spend that much money? That is the question we should be asking ourselves. The stakeholders meeting that the National Assembly will want to convene, can it be convened in such a way that you don't have to spend those kind of money? When we hold conferences at universities and other places of high discussion, do we spend that much money to hold those conferences? We have resources all over the country, everywhere, and there are people who feel willing to freely give advice on particular legislation without having to take any money. Don't we need to use such people? Do we need to create think tanks, advocacy think tanks, whose responsibility basically is to review laws, regulate bills that are supposed to be sent to the National Assembly, so that the National Assembly won't need to look for consultants or expertise that are nowhere to do some of this stuff? Then, do we need to make the National Assembly not so attractive for people to want to go and earn extra money out of doing what they need to do for their citizens? These are the questions we need to start thinking. Start rethinking legislative process in Nigeria. Number two, we also need to ask ourselves the presidential powers that are available. Can we not explore them in dealing with certain situations? Must everything that we need to do go through legislation? Are there no ways directives can be strong enough that they will invite sanctions if they are breached? Are there no laws or regulations, laws specifically, that we can derive certain policies from that will allow us not to go to the National Assembly if it becomes so expensive? All of these are things we need to really, really think about in order to get us moving. Because at this rate, if we have to wait for laws to do certain things in this country, then it does appear as if we may not be able to do them.
Thank you very much. Mr. Minu.
Thank you very much. The cost-benefit analysis that has been presented shows that adequate resources have been made available to the National Assembly for them to do what they are to do as a governance institution. So mine is to appeal to the 8th National Assembly to ensure that before the 2nd of June 2019, they have passed these critical bills. Having passed the bills, again, I'm hoping that despite the fact that the previous vetoes that the President has communicated to the National Assembly, some of the reasons have been around this lack of interagency collaboration in the institutions that are going to be called upon to implement these legislations. the president should take comfort that the legislation itself now would be the trigger, would be the catalyst to forge and foster this interagency collaboration, as Mr. Agama has highlighted, in respect of the areas of making sure that the agencies established under these respective legislations draw their membership from the different agencies involved in implementing one aspect or the other of the entire ecosystem. So again, we urge the president to not hesitate in assenting the bills when they are passed by the National Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time. This is when we get to open the floor. I know that many of you Ladies and gentlemen, this is the time we are going to open the floor to you so that you can now have a conversation. I know many of you have questions, many of you have, so I would ask that when the mic gets to you, you briefly state your name, make your input. If it's a question, you make the question, so that we can also give as many people as possible time to be able to ask these questions. We will go around 5 questions each round, and then we'll have people answer. So you can start from him.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Okedola Falani is my name, from the National Seed Council. Greetings from the Director General Seed Council, and from me, I extend our appreciation to all the stakeholders that are gathered here. From that, our effort remains solid to make sure that the seed bill is assented to by Mr. President. As we speak, the bill has been cleaned by the legal department of the National Assembly. They've been given a order to ensure that it gets to the President as soon as possible. All those that need to be reached, even in the office of the President, have been reached, so that once the bill gets there, we hope this time around it will receive assent of Mr. President. We've been saying a lot of things, and I think we want to lend our voice by saying, from the floor, we've been hearing a lot, private sector, public sector, some mention of the, farmers, community, and cooperatives, but I think what we need to also start to pass as a message is the need for, communities to also come into play in most of what we are saying. Not only communities, but associations. We're talking of soil testing. That may not necessarily be what government should do, but a community or a farmer cooperative, those who are using the land, can gather and, do a small study, make payment for it, so that they can also contribute. There are a lot of things we leave to government in Nigeria that, government may not necessarily need to do, but we need to help ourselves. In that same vein, I want to say, we are talking about the National Assembly. You mentioned the legislative process. Every one of us in Nigeria is involved in the legislative process. If the cost of passing a legislation is 2 billion, the question should not go to the National Assembly alone, but to every Nigerian that play a role in, every legislative process. I think, as we are saying, when it comes to election, don't take money from politicians. We should also start saying, when it comes to passage of bill, because the bill will affect you and me, don't take money from the National Assembly. Maybe in this way we can reduce the cost of, passage of some of these bills. And I think this is where we are. The National Agricultue Council is happy with the NESG. We are also in support of all the other bills because they work together. And for every government agency here, I like what my brother has said. There is, all agencies know where their strength is and where their strength lies.
Permit
Yes.
me to be the headmistress.
This is my last contribution, please. This is my last contribution. Let agencies work based on their strength and, work in synergy. I think that will take us forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Man with the white behind? Yes. We will take as many as possible, five in a row. So please, your name, your question, or your intervention, very quickly. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Chinedu Onyevu. I have a concern, which is a question.
do we begin to assess the efficacy of all this bureaucracy? You know, we have this extension of government into every area, into every facet. Does government have the capacity? Does it have the willpower to actually manage this whole process? And if not, how do we extend this services or this requirements to other stakeholders within the value chain to ensure that whatever government cannot do, the private sector, which should be the arm that drives economic development in the country, does this? And finally, with regards to the Security and Exchange Commission comment, you made a comment earlier that SEC should be the one regulating the commodities or the products that will be traded as commodities. Now that the Act is going to be passed, how does it change the role of the agency, the warehouse agency, from what SEC is supposed to do?
The lady in the orange, she's been raising her hand up forever. Can the hotel guys please just help us to make sure that this thing can work efficiently? Please pass the mic to her.
Thank you, my Mary Ishaya Afan, the National President of Small Women. My name is Mrs. Mary Ishaya Afan, the National President of Small Scale Women Farmers Organization in Nigeria, cut across 36 states, including FCT. Very interesting presentation. I'm happy with the organizers of this program. But my major worry and question is that legislature to be passed for me to produce food to put on the people's table. Should that be a difficult issue? But just because of different type of sentiment and private interest. I want to say that a lot of issues I've been having around here. I've been hearing presentation on issue of seed and fertilizer. If you know what we farmers pass through with these issues, it's to lament on. When you are telling me about improved seed, it's not easy when they were making the presentation. The woman that spoke in Hausa is a lamenting issue. For you to buy seed, to spend 6 months to produce that seed, and at the end of the day you don't yield anything, it's not easy, and you can't repeat it. Only for you to go and obtain fertilizer, that it has been subsidized, only to apply on the crop, you can't yield anything. So it becomes for us, especially other farmers that will reside in the rural communities. How much of this training reaches in the communities? Major producers of this food. These legislatures that is to be passed, who is going to implement it? How is it going to affect me? Our issue is not making the legislatures or making the bills or making the laws, but implementing them is a very serious issue. In the term past, we have extension staff coming to do on-farm demonstration on how to produce this new variety of crop. We no longer see them again. If you are talking about e-extension, me that live in the rural community, I don't have network, I don't have phone. How do I get access to this e-extension? I'm appealing that as simple and important as it is, before the policies are formulated, you cannot sit down to formulate policies that will affect me without me being on that round table. The smallholder farmers who are going to be the beneficiaries of those policies should be involved from the briefing stage for them to understand. We'll be able to advocate even at our own level to even pass you that you are looking at the legislatures. They live with us. We meet them. We can talk to them because these are issues that affect us. I'm pleading that such issues should be handled alongside the beneficiaries of those policies.
Thank you very much.
And I want to appreciate what has happened here.
Thank you very much. The fourth person. That's 4 in this round.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would have not spoken again because the madam that spoke last have said many
Sir,
of what
please, your name and your organization.
My name is S.A. Babadara, the National President of Kola Nut and Bitter Kola Association of Nigeria. I would have not said any other thing because he has spoken many of what I wanted to say. But I have some little differences. The bill is a necessity for farmers. The 3 bills, especially this warehouse receipt system. The warehouse man can testify Kola Nut Association have been active with exchange commission so that we can begin to do partnership on warehouse receipt system. But it was this legislation that put us back. That is why we were not able to perform for more than 15 years. So it is a necessity for farmers. But according to what the woman said, matter of implementation, I wrote it here that implementation from beginning to the end, farmers, smallholder farmers should be involved in what we want to do for them. Because there are sometimes when you see you have 3 children, you say, what do you need? The other one may say, I need clothes. The other one may say, I need water. The other one may say, I need money. If you give anybody that has money, who needs money, clothes, he may not be happy with you. Somebody that needs water, you give him clothes, may not be happy. So people that are involved should be involved from the scratch, not and to the implementation level. So that is where we are lacking, because we just always give lip service to agriculture. They say farmers are kings. It is now when we are able to implement this one, we know whether farmers are kings. Because it is lip service.
Thank you very much.
You just praise farmers and they are losing all the year. The one man said the seed man, I think he has left. I don't know whether he has left. He mentioned that we should not wait on government. Nigeria farmers are not ripe enough not to wait on government, not to depend on government. Even American farmers depend largely on government. Government subsidize largely. They give them seed free. They give inputs free. They take care of their farm. They supervise it together with them. And after all said and done, they will buy at exorbitant prices that the farmers cannot sell it to encourage them.
Thank you, sir.
We are not encouraging our farmers. And that is why, please, madam, you see the youth. I'm always happy when youth come around to do farming activities. But they will run away because they are not encouraged. We have been talking of access to loan. You will see, CBN will tell you have 60 billion, 500 billion, something billion for farmers. At the end of the day, they will not harness 1 billion out of the 500 billion they are talking about. What is wrong in this country? We are just giving lip service to agriculture. If you can change our attitude, that is, if you didn't change that attitude, we go to square one.
Yes.
God help us.
Thank you, sir. One last question for this round.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Mary Opunze from Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. You emphasized on the need for synergy. I know that there's no synergy at all, or lack of synergy. This bill, I wonder how a bill should be passed to this level without the input of Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, that's fertilizer, on fertilizer. And SARS made mention of that ways and measures are not working. I wonder whether they're invited in this ministry. At least let them come and defend themselves. I wonder whether they're here. Sir, I know it's not late. Let our mandates be captured. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I will hold on. This is going on so that we don't have a pile-up of questions. The first 5 questions, let's seek answers to them, and then we'll come back again for another 5. So who wants to go first?
Thank you very much. I'm not trying to say that I have answers to all the questions, but all I'm going to do is I'll just put on the table for digestion some of the issues that I think I would respond to most of the queries that have been raised. I think we need to understand that these legislations or legislation or bills or whatever they are a framework that would create an environment for more private sector participation than public sector participation. And let me give you a practical example without using too much English in this matter. On the warehouse receipt and the commodities market that Mr. Agama has been referring to, if you go to Uganda, you go to Kenya, you go to Ethiopia, each of these countries, we know them with a particular crop. For instance, Ethiopia has coffee. The coffee farmer in Ethiopia could sell his coffee in New York through the commodities ecosystem. He knows what his money is coming to him. And all that he will now speak to the government is, how much tax rate do you have for coffee that I will pay you? I will collect my money myself. That is what the ecosystem does for the farmer. So compared to, for instance, the marketing board, it is the marketing board that will collect everything, sell it, collect the process, and give the farmer what it thinks it will give to the farmer. So these legislations that we're looking at, that is the underlying consideration that informs how they are framed, how they are structured, to make sure that public sector remains only at the regulatory level. The actual activities to be undertaken in respect of each aspect of what the legislation is trying to cover is going to be conducted in an entirely private sector participatory manner. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so thank you. The direct question that relates to me is with regards to the relationship between the Warehouse Regulatory Agency and the SEC with respect to instruments that are going to be traded as the warehouse receipts. Like I said, we are closely related. The warehouse receipt, for it to be traded, must be certified by the Warehouse Receipt Agency. So it's a precondition for its trading. But at the point of trading, the responsibility over the exchange is that of the SEC. So the SEC regulates the trading of the commodity or the instrument, while the Warehouse Receipt Agency is the one that provides the inputs of authentication and certification to that receipt. Right? So the second relationship is for the warehouses. As we speak today, Part C of the Rules and Regulation of the Commission, derived from Section 13 of the Investment and Securities Act, allows the SEC to regulate warehouses and commodities exchanges. That will not change. The regulation of commodity exchanges is a responsibility of the SEC, of all exchanges for that matter, that trade on both shares, securities, and other financial instruments. However, the relationship between the warehouse and the agencies is a different kettle of fish, because the commodities that will be traded on the exchange are going to be regulated via the warehouses, which is regulated by the Warehouse Receipt Agency. And why is this the case? Somebody will ask, is it not a duplication like you was first said? It's not a duplication. The SEC does not have the capacity and the reach to get to all of the warehouses in Nigeria. No way. It's not possible. It's not done anywhere. Our responsibility is definite, and clear. That is why you need an agency that will do that, and do that very comfortably, reaching out to the farmers themselves. I advocate that for the warehouse agency, 80% of its staff must be field staff. It's only between 20%, 10 and 20% that should be in the office. 80% of those staff must be field staff, going to warehouses all over Nigeria, the length and breadth of this country, to actually do the work and reach out to farmers, get them to know where the next warehouse is, and supervising those warehouses to at least meet the specifications that they require.
For me, I sympathize with Madam Mary, the chairperson or the president of the small-scale producers. Women, okay. Why not men too? And also with Baba, the kola nut and bitter kola. You are speaking my mind because I'm a farmer too. I was privileged to have been educated, being ambassador and all the rest, but I've retired and now I'm at home and I'm seeing the reality of things. It is true. There's so much unemployment. Many of the youth prefer riding Okada to going to the farm because the money they get so quickly in hand to them is more than going to suffer under the hot sun, energy sapping, and so on and so forth. Without government coming to assist with subsidy to clear land, first of all, where will they get the money to clear land? To use a bulldozer in a day will cost you almost 300,000 naira. And the bulldozer, depending on how forested, it may only do 1 hectare, it could do 2 if you are lucky. So where on earth do you want to encourage agricultural production? Should they be using hoe and cutlass again? Nobody will do that. Our father sent us to school because they felt that was too energy sapping and that we should be more scientific in our approach. So many students get admission to universities just because they want a degree. Some of them go for agriculture, but when they come back, they don't do agriculture. So the need for government to sensitize the people, give them incentives, is very important. I agree with you that when legislations are made that will affect the generality of the people, right down to the grassroots should be brought up originally to sensitize them. Oh, there's this law coming. What are your own inputs? Talk to your members of parliament, both state and federal. These are the things we require. We know that a law is coming up. Could you input this and that to cater for our needs? And not just an imposition, but the imperial majesty of a called National Assembly on the people. So I sympathize with you. I agree with you totally that the government has to give incentives to people, educate them. The demonstration plus will have to return. What do you call them? These people go around to help farmers, extension officers. Should be a lot of them should be recruited. There's an advertisement going on that Custom wants to recruit about 3,000 people. Why not farmers recruiting 3 million people to help farmers? Why the government will not recruit so many? So that if we are serious about food security in this country, we need the capacity, the people, the inputs, so that by the time we reach that level where we can help ourselves, we don't need the government again. Thank you.
I think there's one question outstanding, so that the madam from Ministry of Trade and Investment does not skin us. Who wants to?
That is a direct response to that. She's here. So all other engagements, Mr. Agama will stand witness to me, there is no stakeholder participation engagement in which there is no official from that ministry. And Mr. Gama started off by even saying that the former minister of Trade and Industry set up a committee that brought to birth even the idea of forming together or coming together or drafting or putting together the bill that was taken to the National Assembly. It was under the driving seat of, and there were so many MOUs that have been signed by that minister in respect of all the other issues that are under the purview of the Ministry of Trade in respect of certification for standards, name it. So the ministry has been involved in this thing from the word go. So, and at any other engagement, again, we'll make sure that there is a representative of the ministry. Maybe it is the ministry that has not been convening stakeholder engagements in this respect.
Thank you. I hope Madam Okuze is happy now. Ife, please, where are you? I need someone to pass the mic around. Yes, just let it keep going from there to the back. Take another 5 and come back. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Habiba Suleiman. I'm from TGI Group. So I'd just like to add that that we probably work towards publicizing all of these engagements to carry the entire stakeholders along, like the entire, down to the smallholder farmers. I believe this will go a long way, probably putting pressure on the legislatures to act really fast. Then, with regards warehousing, the warehousing system, I love that there's deliberate effort to ensure that there are standards, processes, and all of that. But in addition to making it okay for off-takers like us, I would like to ensure that there's standard systems as well. So we have global standards and all of those. Can we have those systems replicated around here as well? So I remember last year, I think Nigeria lost about $28 billion in cashew exports that were rejected. So what happens is you take all of those products and then they're not good. They may be okay, but if they're rejected, they're sent back here. So can we work towards ensuring that, we have arms of all of those agencies here so that whatever goes out, we're sure that it goes out and then revenue comes back in. Then in addition to working, to enhance seeds and fertilizer and all of the inputs, I would like to know what's specifically being done on, increasing land cultivated, so area cultivated. We have lots of arable land that's yet to be cultivated. I'd like to know what's specifically done to increase all of those areas. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Sefion Pan, and with due respect to the organizers, I expected some aspect of the bill that we are talking about to be extracted and portrayed here. This, to some extent, would have solved most of the problems, the questions. Having said that, I just hope the content of this bill had included soil testing before anything is done to the soil. If I have time, I would have given you 2 scenarios, what fertilizer does to the soil. If I'm given the time, but if not, I just hope that soil testing, because Nigerian soils are not homogeneous. They change at short distances, and going by that, again, we have problem soils. And speaking from the aspect of, from Department of Agricultural Land and Climate Change Management Services. So we know what fertilizer do to the soil if it is wrongly applied. How much does the farmer know what to apply if it's for vegetable? They don't need so much of the fertilizers except nitrogenous fertilizers. From which source? Then the phosphorus is just for tuber crops. How much do these farmers knows about that? I went around doing a liming. For instance, I'm talking about the problem source in the east. What they need is to launch liming because of the acidity. So if, let us not talk as if Nigerian soils are homogeneous, and what is good for the north, alkaline soils is also good for the, alkaline and sodic soils is also good for acidic soils. It is not like that. I just hope the content which I had wanted to see, so that we see how we can, I just hope that such important content are there. We can make this soil worst. You talk about fertilizer. We talk about every other thing. This thing is on land. There is a capacity a land can carry. So, if it is not now, I think a follow-up would be looking into Nigerian soils and how we can amend it for the farmers.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
I want to use this opportunity to thank the organizers. I am I.A. Buba from Farm Input Support Services Department, the department that will be saddled with the responsibility of implementing the fertilizer bill. The sector that coordinated the GS program. In preparation for implementing the bill, we have done a lot of groundwork. We have trained our inspectors, both home and abroad. The fear expressed by my colleague, who is also from the same ministry, I was even surprised when he's talking where we have been working. This bill started from the ministry as a result of working with the farmers, with the fertilizer agro dealers, with all the different stakeholders in the fertilizer value chain. We have even produced crop management practices for all the agroecological zones, which is with the input of the various stakeholders. Two, we have also recently trained all the zonal research institutes, the people handling fertilizer testing in all the zonal universities, and we have a fertilizer development center in Kaduna, where if there is any dispute, it is that place that will clear all the dispute. So we handle everything that affects fertilizer. In addition, I want to speak little about the GES. GES was a scheme designed to move farmers from one level of operation to the next level. Growth Enhancement Support Scheme. What it means is that we are meeting a farmer at one level of operation, and we are trying to grow him to a certain level. We have three main categories: smallholder, medium scale, and large scale. So if we meet you at small scale, we try to move you to medium scale and move you from medium scale to large scale and commercial farmer. What we did at the beginning was to profile all the farmers. Where are they located? What is the current status of those farmers at that particular stage? And then we now begin to support them. And under the Growth Enhancement Support Scheme, there is what we call SOP. That is Standard Operating Procedure. Under the GS, it is the only scheme in Nigeria that was chartered. There is a complaint mechanism, and there is service. The service is already chartered. Farmers can testify that if you have conducted sensitization for the farmer, they will tell you that it's the only GS that has helped them. And the GS has inception meetings right from, when we started the GS scheme, there's no centers where you are selling fertilizer in Nigeria. People are just selling randomly. So GS created about almost 2,000 what you call redemption centers, input selling centers. And in these input centers, agro dealers was groomed and supported with finance under NISAL to be selling input. Under the GS scheme also, 80% of the scheme was controlled by private sectors. The supply chain management is private sector. The input providers is private sector. Apart from the coordination, the ministry the finance was also from the private sector. So all the operation of the GS scheme is by private sector. And under the scheme as well, the centers that were created, all the input providers, the agro dealer that will be buying input from the supplier, other importers or producers, you are known. The input you are bringing to the center, you know the source of the input, because you have to nominate your supplier before you are mapped to a center. And if there is any challenge with that particular input, the supplier can be traced. Some of us can testify here that there are many cities that was supplied that was substandard. When it failed to germinate, the supplier was stressed and he was penalized. He had to pay some money and return the money of the farmers. So under the GS scheme, every stakeholder can be traced. What you have done over 20 years can be traced back. So the only problem we have been having is that the GS has been borrowed by over 40 countries today. And they are implementing the GS called e-wallet. But it's only in Nigeria that we're having challenges. And even here now, apart from the farmers, most of the people seated here doesn't know much about the GS. GS has knowledge management and information sharing, home and abroad. Every Mondays we have what is called GS working group. What is happening, the whole country that have visited our website, asking questions about the GS, the desk was created to give response back to these people. This was done by our former minister. But here now, most people, they don't know the operation of the GS. I will urge you to get a copy of the GS, up to the updated. If you read through, you know everything about our operation.
Thank you, Mr. Buba. Let's not turn it into fisticuffs. Can we have 2 more questions?
Thank you. My name is Charles Yarima Adu. I am the National Program Coordinator of the Association of Small-Scale Agro Producers in Nigeria, ASAPIN. I commend the organizers of this meeting, and I also congratulate the panelists there. I know we are here to see and pray that the seed bill has accepted the president's assent. That's the most critical thing now. Any other thing with regards to implementation, when the bill is passed into law, we'll also gather to develop the roadmap. I have this following question for the panelists. One, how do you think that farmers can be empowered in this process when this bill is ascended to ensure that they own and manage warehouse? What I mean by this, if farmers themselves are not involved, one of the panelists did mention that sometimes if the warehouse is located 20 kilometers away from the farm zone, it will be a challenge to farmers to access it. How do you think, in your own opinion, when this bill is passed into law, farmers can be empowered to ensure that they also own warehouse themselves, where they can mobilize themselves and encourage themselves to utilize this warehouse? 2, how do you also think that small-scale farmers can equally be empowered to engage in community seed production? Population of Nigeria is growing seriously. Our policies, even the available ones that are good, we are not developing roadmap that will be able to take care of the demand of the growing population. How do you think, if this bill is passed into law, community seed producers can be empowered so that the satisfied and improved seeds that we're talking of that will increase or turn around the productivity of Nigeria can also be increased? This last question, probably we might not be interested in hearing it much, but it has been, several meetings have been going to see some other people are speaking against GMO. What do you think, in your own opinion, would be the implication of this bill and the GMO? Can these 2 things be managed assiduously together? Thank you.
1 more question and then we take answers.
My name is Kevin Gager. I'm the national team leader of PropCom DFID. In the political cycle, how much advocacy is required to get these bills moving over the next 3, 4 months or 4 years or 8 years in the case of the fertilizer bill? Who is taking it forward? Because without some decent advocacy, we can talk as much as we like, it's not going to go anywhere. Secondly, domestication. Federal doesn't have the capacity. Very often the institutions themselves are begging money from the private sector in order to actually implement what they should be doing. So when does the issue of resources start to come from? Because budgets for 2019-20 will start in the next 2 months. So what do we do? Miss another year? It's great thinking about the high-level stuff, but you need to embed it in reality as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're taking 5 questions now. We will take answers and then come back for the last round. Thank you.
Let me look at some of these questions which have been asked. Yes, let me start with the GS thing that Mr. Buba of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture was explaining to us. Thank you for the knowledge you have given to many of us this morning about it, and how some African countries have keyed into it, and you are the depository organization now that is telling the other African countries how to do the wallet system. You are now training African countries on things that you are no longer practicing. What a shame. So you better tell your ministry to let them belt up and bring back GES that many farmers in Nigeria want. As for commodity seeds, which, what was the name of the man then? Charles, is it Charles? Charles Abdul or something. Yeah. Commodity seed producers cannot, I'm not sure whether the bill talked about commodity seed, because I read the bill today. I may be corrected by Mr. Folari from NASC. Anybody can be a seed producer as long as he has the license to do so. He is certified by the National Agricultural Seed Council to do so. So if you have the knowledge, you have the license, you have the equipment, you have everything that is required, and you are certified by the National Agricultural Seed Council, there's no problem about that. But as far as commodity seed producers are concerned, they have to meet all the requirements if they want to be seed producers. Now, does the GMO issue, that's very controversial. It is in the bill. I read the draft this morning, thanks to Folari who sent it to me. But it has to meet the international standards. The Nigerian standards, the West African standards, and international standards for GMO to be accepted. And again, the most important thing is it has to meet the biosafety regulation of this country. If it doesn't, it will not be allowed. But what's most important is the implementation. Those who will enforce the enforcement mechanism of these regulations, those who will enforce, they have to be patriotic and be dedicated to be able to make sure that they don't do the wrong thing. I don't know the name of the white man who talked last. Kevin. Oh, sorry, if I don't have your name, Kevin. How much advocacy is involved? Domestication, the federal government doesn't have the capacity. Will the budget, where will the budget come from? Yeah, all of us want the best in this world, but we are always limited by lack of resources. The government has so much to do that the resource they have is spread so thinly that sometimes you don't even see the impact. So let's hope that whatever they want to do, they plan it well and ensure that they back it up. If they cannot plan well and back up what they want to do, they should not even start planning at all. The private sector can assist. The development partners can also assist. And the government is part of the international community where they can borrow money. After all, we are getting back some funds from the Paris negotiation. Thank you.
I will address the issue of standards. What we are doing at the SCC, on the technical committee, on the commodities market ecosystem, is to actually engage with the standards organizations of Nigeria. The Standard Organization of Nigeria, I'm sure a lot of you may not know, have numerous standards. Standards that they actually adopted from international agri standards. But the challenge that they have always had was to publicize these standards, for the standards to be available to everyone to see and use. So what we have decided to do within the ecosystem, the commodities exchange trading ecosystem, is to assist them to look at those standards again, get a team of experts to review the standards, and get stakeholders' input on those standards to be sure that those standards actually meet international best standards or best practice, and then publicize it. In fact, we intend to put them on our website, to put a link so that people can go to the website, get those standards, and apply those standards in their various farms. Because without those standards, people are not able to know exactly what to do, and once those commodities go out of our shores, they are rejected. So that is what we are doing, and we're encouraging more people to engage with the Standards Organization of Nigeria in order to have knowledge of these standards that are readily available for most of the commodities that you have in Nigeria. That's one. Then, in terms of the warehouse, how do we empower? Well, the truth about it is that establishment of warehouse is a business idea, opportunity. So, it is, do you want to establish a warehouse? The next thing is, okay, I'm sure you are talking about who provides the funding for you to establish a warehouse. That's my thought about the question you are asking. Like I said, it's a business decision. And there are various sources of obtaining funds or sourcing for funds to establish a business. If we follow those processes and those sources, banks are part of it, some development agencies may be able to help you, agricultural cooperatives may be able to help you. Something about synergy, association. If you know that the business is going to be profitable, then you can ring around it to provide solutions to building those warehouses. In fact, I have been approached by several people building warehouses. And there are a lot of warehouses all over the places that are not being used. So you can approach them, you can lease it, you can do so many things. I told somebody about the various post offices we have in every local government in Nigeria that are not being used anymore. All we need to do is to negotiate with the Ministry of Communications or whoever oversees those post office buildings and see how we can rebrand them and remodel them into becoming warehouses. And they are everywhere, all over the world, all over Nigeria rather. So there are opportunities, strong business opportunities, and there are a lot of warehouses. Go to Kaduna, those textile warehouses, they are still there, not being used. So the opportunities are everywhere. So my friend, all you need to do is actually look out and you'll find them, source for opportunities, source for funding from various sources, and you will be there.
Thank you very much. Mine is just to add that the bills, they are not an encyclopedia, so they don't contain everything required of them that you would think would answer the questions that are required. Especially when you are looking at specifically technical issues that, forgive me for saying this, is beyond the competency of the 500 members of the National Assembly to understand. So that is why each of these bills has made a provision for somebody to make rules, subsidiary rules, regulations, guidelines, so that now all those technical aspects that you think would not have been answered in the primary legislation will be addressed by the subsidiary legislation. That is one. Two, again, Mr. Agama has addressed this. these legislations, they are coming from the starting premise that they want to create an enabling environment for people now to take up the opportunities that are seen in the agricultural sector as an economic activity, economically viable activity, not as it has been in the past. So the bills are trying to see how would they become now a catalyst, a creator of an enabling environment in which farming activity will now be seen as a business. Then, on the issue of advocacy, I'm quite sure Mr. Gama, from 2008, 2009, so you could see that if not for the sustaining of the advocacy work that has been going on, whether from the public sector or collaboration, as this dialogue is a witness to, the National Assembly would have lost this bill long ago. So that advocacy is what is sustaining even the momentum on the bills. And it is this same advocacy engagement that will enable us to now go to the next level of make sure that domestication does not falter. These bills, we are hoping that by the time they become law, will not just be kept in the statute books or somewhere in the office of an entity, and they will just be gathering dust. To work to see that the measures, the statements or the words in those bills are translated into living reality. Of course, we require resources, we require funding to make sure that these activities are carried through, are carried forward. And again, Mr. Gama has also pointed this out. For instance, you have the commodities ecosystem in place, and it is functioning. A farmer is assured of getting, if it is 10 naira for 1 kilogram of tomatoes, he will get that 10 naira from 1 kilogram of tomatoes. But imagine where a farmer will not get 10 naira for 1 kilogram of tomatoes. How would he finance anything that will make his own business to be self-sustaining? So we need to look at it that this is a self-reinforcing environment that is being created by these bills. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Just to complement the answers given by my colleagues here, the federal government of Nigeria has established 25 aggregation centers all over the country. And the aggregation centers have first-class equipment for drying, for destoning, and for cleaning grains and seeds all over the country. So in addition to the silos that they have, I think they list them out. So those ones are, maybe there is need for more information for you to know. You can get that from the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to add on to Mr. Akwan's concern. The bill, the fertilizer bill, makes a lot of provisions, and one of that is quality control of fertilizer market / sector, as government would regulate the sector to ensure adherence to standards. It also provides for protection of the soil from depletion. Now, there is no way you want to protect the soil from depletion without the role of soil testing and fertilizer trials, which was one of the questions that I had asked here just to be able to shed more light on the issue. I hope that responds to your concern. We will also be mailing out soft copies of some of the fact books and analysis that we have done on these 3 bills, which is in a concise manner that you can read, easy read, 10, 12 pages. You would also be able to get access to that. I hope that helps. Time is pretty much spent, so I'm going to have to subject this to democracy. Can we go one more round of questions and call it a day, or should we call it a day now? The ayes? The nays? So we should take one round of questions. Can we do this in 10 minutes and wrap it up so that I do not stand between you and lunch? Ife, round to you. Let's take 5 more questions quickly, and we get the panelists to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Madam Moderator. Okay, Sunday is my name from Federal Ministry of Agric. I wouldn't want to dwell on the issues that have been raised, but let me quickly remind ourselves that on the National Fertilizer Bill, which has been passed by the National Assembly, there is a delay in transmission to the President for assent. I know that NESG has done much advocacy on the need for the President to assent to it, but there is a delay. We need to facilitate that as fast as possible before the expiration of the 80th National Assembly. I think the same thing applies to the National Agricultural Seed Council Bill. Then on the Commodity Exchange Bill, or whether the warehousing bill, in the course of undertaking some activities under the AGRA project, we discovered the existence of this bill at the National Assembly. We have the Warehouse Regulatory Agency Establishment Bill. We also have the Commodity Exchange Bill. We have also the Warehouse Receipt Bill. So in the course of that, we discovered there were a lot of petitions written against each of these bills. And that's exactly part of the issues we're raising here. Most of the times, government agencies seem to be antagonizing themselves instead of complementing each other. I think this group is necessary that we take up this issue. Most of the times, the need for perfection may override the need for urgent action. Is it possible for us to bring this bill back, review them, study them very well, and harmonize them so that it can accommodate most of the issues? I don't know whether there are efforts aimed at doing that already, but I just think it's necessary for us to have this understanding so that we don't suffer the same kind of delay we had in the various other bills. Thank you very much.
My name is Chief Daniel Okafo. I am a Vice National President of Farmers Association of Nigeria and National President of Potato Farmers. I thank the organizers of this very important seminar or workshop. I really want to point out one thing, that we must be focused on one thing that brought us here, the issue of the bill being signed. All these bills are very, very important to the farmers. It is the farmers who knows where the shoe is pinching them. It's not all the stakeholders here. We have been suffering for a long time. We don't know why this bill is being delayed. Is it because they don't know that the food security is important? Is it because they don't know the population of this country is growing? Is it because they don't even value the farmers, who are the people that put them there? Democracy is what we are practicing in Nigeria, and we must do it well. This bill must be signed. It is not because of any other thing. It's because of the welfare and the people of Nigeria. Is it bad that the farmers in Nigeria started to make money by having a good quality seed or fertilizer or whatever? Is it bad? So please, what I'm saying today is that we must, I drove from Oka to make sure that I am here. It is very important that we must do one thing. Let's focus on why should the president delay the bill? Why is it? So you must say something. And if it's not, we carry placards. The farmers should carry placards and say why this bill should be signed. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mrs. Lizzie Ibine, National President of Nigerian Women Agro-Allied Farmers Association. What I understand here is we have agreed that the need for the bill to be signed now and now is there. Are we getting the bill? When? Then two, I also heard of the regulation. That is what is going to bring us into business. Not government hand-feeding us or bringing people to lord it over us. Do we have access to business in the fertilizer? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm Arokoyo from AGRA. I'm talking as me now, not as a AGRA representative, as a Nigerian that is interested in the success of agriculture. The warehouse receipting bill is a good attempt, but my question here is this. How effective and sustainable can the warehouse receipting bill be without a working commodity exchange markets. You talked about somebody going there, taking the receipt to the floor of the exchange markets to make money out of it as futures, whatever. Do we have that commodity exchange market in operation or in existence to the point of making these warehouse receipts a success? I have always known that the warehouse receipting issue is like a very small subset of the whole bundle of what you call commodity exchange market. So, I hear there are dissenting voices. I will expect the NESG to bring together all these dissenting voices. What exactly do you have against this? So we sit together and bring out something that is worthwhile. I don't know what is the security exchange good, God bless you. What are they doing? What is their level of involvement in this? We talk of standards. What is the level of involvement of standards organization in this? The Federal Ministry of Trade and Investment. I know you mentioned it. Let's be careful just making loose statements about certain things that are not realistic. You can tell everybody, oh, this is that, this one is involved, that. To what extent are they involved? And how effective and realistic is their involvement to making what we are here for workable? We have to get those clear. The CBN is very important. The commercial banks, if you want to take the receipt of one to go and trade with it or to borrow with it, how many commercial banks know about this and are willing to accept? Sorry, I just give me 1 more minute. I'll do one clear one. Talking about the middlemen and you people in the warehouse. The middlemen, they are able to pay these people money when they need it. Now they are coming to the warehouse. They are dropping money there to put their commodities in the warehouse. What have we done to make farmers understand this fact? The qualities of commodities they have to bring, the humidity level that these things should have. Do they know? Now in your warehouses, what infrastructures do you have to ensure that now I have put my commodity there, after 2-3 months, I've come to trade with it. Can it be what I left there? What are the legal backings? Do you have insurance facilities that cover this for these people to be able to understand? The long and short of it is this. Sorry, the media should be aggressively involved in whatever it is we are doing. There is no way the farmers down there will know this. Have billboards, go to the television, on radio, have phone-in programs so that people will know exactly what you are doing. What does it take the farmer to be able to appreciate bringing his commodities to a warehouse? We should tell them, regardless of how many number of staff you say you are throwing there, the farmer that has just 10 bags, you're asking him to bring, how does he do that? Does he appreciate the essence of doing it? We have to do a lot of work to be able to make this thing work. It's not only just the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Okuyo. One last question, and then we can wrap this up.
Good afternoon, colleagues and countrymen. My name is Abiodun Hebuzo. I'm primarily a farmer, but more importantly, I provide leadership to the Nigerian Association of Small and Medium Enterprises here in FCT. My focus on the discourse is on the coherency and the completeness of the proposed bill. Firstly, the future of agriculture and farming has gone into the urban farming perspective. As we propose this bill, I see a lacuna in the provision on the urban farming concept. I just spoke with a friend here. I said hydrophobic farming is key to vegetable cropping here in Nigeria now. And as we talk about fertilizer, we have also not really the fertilizer bill, we've not really delved into the implications of that for the future of farming, especially as we speak into the culture of hydrophobic farming and urban farming. More importantly, Abuja Enterprises Protection Agency, if you go, like you referred, listen to radio, you will hear them say, don't farm within Abuja. And now we are talking about farming. By default, there is a policy and there is a law that dispermits you from farming within Abuja. But there is a new culture where in developed economies, skyscrapers are farmed, buildings are farmed. So we just, as we think about being proactive, and as we think, somebody mentioned it a little bit earlier, we should be thinking about proposing a bill that the future can accommodate. And if we can do that from this discourse today, I think we owe the future farmers of Nigeria something we have done for them. Let me rest my case for now.
Thank you, Mr. Ihebuzo. So, panelists, let's go.
I will allow you guys to have the last words. I'm grateful. Let me say this in a general way. The bills are not cast in stone. They are not sacrosanct. So they are subject to modification, continuing review, and whatever it is that we want. So we should not think that the bills as they are will deliver. If, as at the time that the president assents to these bills, they become law, we find that they cannot deliver, we have to come up with concrete, evidentiary information that will establish how the bills are not working, and definitely will get the National Assembly to amend those bills. Again, I will reiterate this point. The bills as they are, even if they cannot function, we expect that the public functionaries that have been charged with the responsibility of making subsidiary rules would be able to come up with the necessary regulatory guidelines that will address those issues that are not fundamentally moving away from what is contained in the framework that has been established by the bills. So for me, there is no problem to it. And well, he said he's speaking in a private capacity, not as a representative of AGRA. Most of the things that he's raising now are issues that we have been battling with, tackling, looking at from 2008. Because when you look at it, the warehouse receipt bill is informed by the fact that Securities and Exchange Commission already has a regulatory framework on which it is going to regulate anybody that is going into the capital market. But if you want to take that instrument now to a bank, does the central bank has the necessary regulations now to direct? So it's not an issue of bringing banks here. It is actually getting the central bank to understand the ecosystem, how it is functioning, in a way it will exercise its own regulatory powers, not to defeat or become an obstructionist to whatever it is that the Securities and Exchange Commission has put in place. So in order to foster and forge an interagency regulatory collaboration, it was found that there is need to have a legislation that will address the gaps in the legislation of Securities and Exchange Commission, the gaps in the legislation established the Central Bank of Nigeria, in a way that at least these two regulatory agencies will be speaking to each other when they are discussing how the financial system will address the requirement of a smallholder farmer who wants to utilize a warehouse receipt, whether in the capital market or in the banks. And when you look at it, the conversation that we've been having from this perspective, we looked at other things that are required even more than these bills. For instance, you want a collateral or a warehouse receipt that somebody wants to register it as a collateral to get a loan. So we came up with the collateral registry system. So the collateral registry system legislation has already come and is up and running. These are some of the components of the ecosystem that we are working on to see that they are all in place to make sure that the entire ecosystem is efficient in delivering in what is expected of it. And finally, I think we are too much caught up with when we use a term or phrase as a handle, we think that phrase is all-encompassing or something to that effect. The mere fact that the title of a bill is fertilizer bill does not mean that that bill is only speaking about fertilizer. So the issue about whether speaking of fertilizer alone will address the requirements of farming, that, as far as I'm concerned, that is not the issue. We take the hint that we have not projected the entire bill as it is. In the process of the work that we have been doing, that bill, if we were to put everything that we think we should go into it, it would be running maybe into 500 pages. But what we felt our National Assembly could deal would just be about 40 pages, Mr. Gama. So we felt that we should summarize everything. The details to be worked out in the subsidiary legislation. So you can have a 1,000-page subsidiary legislation that will address all the technical issues that we are trying to see if they are embedded in the primary legislation as we are having this dialogue today. It's not possible. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I will address my friend from AGRA. Coincidentally, we are working with AGRA. The SEC is working with AGRA on advocacy because it's important that we let people know. The question he asks first is there a functioning commodity exchange? Yes, there is a functioning commodity exchange. We have a private commodity exchange which is called AFEX. AFEX is functioning, but because of the teething problem of the commodity exchange system, they had to become developmental to the extent of getting to the farmer on the grassroots. However, they are functioning. Besides AFEX, we have the government commodity exchange, which is Nigerian Commodity Exchange. It used to be called ASCI, now Nigerian Commodity Exchange, that has been moribund due to finance, right? And it is owned by federal government. Then we have just recently registered a commodity exchange, which is in Lagos. It's the Lagos Commodities and Futures Exchange, right? They are going to start operation in the next 3-4 months, but they are already putting everything in place for them to do that. So clearly we are working on that. But to take all of this together, the reason why the SEC has been very pragmatic and upfront about this whole exercise, because we see agriculture as a major, revenue earner for this country and a major employment generator for this country. And as such, it is important that whatever we can contribute as a government agency to making that happen seamlessly, we have a responsibility to do so. Hence, the technical committee on the commodity exchange ecosystem. After that report, if you go to our website, the SEC's website, you will see the full report of that committee. Then we moved over to the next level of creating an implementation committee to implement the 40 recommendations in that website. We are going to have a roundtable discourse in October, and we are going to have an international conference on commodities in 2020, first quarter of 2020, all with the aim of making sure that everybody is on the same page. And like I told you, one of the reasons why we engaged the SON and brought them into the committee is because we believe that standards are very, very important and essential. And the SON, they have their limitations. But as a co-government agency, we need to hold each other up to run. And the reason and the essence of doing that is for the total benefit of the entire, nation. So we have co-opted SON into our committee, and we are working assiduously to make sure that all of the standards that they already have, you'll be surprised at the number of standards that they have.
are publicized, people are aware of them, and people can make comments for us to have a change on them. Then, finally, the issue of financing. Financing is critical. It's so important for every farmer. The question is, will the central bank admit or accept, a collateral or a warehouse receipt issued by a warehouse? Yes, they will. The central bank is part of the committee. The central bank is part of this government. FSS 2020 is part of the committee. We work together. We are government. And as government, we have intergovernmental agencies that work towards what? One single objective. The objective of making sure that the Nigerian farmer has the last laugh. So, for that reason, what we are advocating is that the major issue is that if a collateral is not strong, you will not have a reduced interest. The reason why you find interest so high is to take care of the risk associated with the activity that is happening. But once the warehouse, like we are saying, what we have done at the SEC too is one, to register collateral managers. We have a rule now going through our rules committee about the registration of collateral managers, that they are fit and proper persons, that they have all it takes to become collateral managers, wherein they can certify that a warehouse is properly fitted for a commodity, and that the commodity that will come out of that warehouse has taken care of all of the technical specifications. And as part of that, what we have also done at the SEC is to adopt the USAID minimum standard for commodities. If you are aware, you will know that USAID has a minimum standard for commodities warehouse. And that we have adopted. And we have improved on that commodity standard by USAID. So that anybody that wants to establish a warehouse in Nigeria will have that as a benchmark. That is not the best, but it is the minimum standard for which any warehouse that will issue a receipt that will be accepted for trading and will be accepted for collateral will make sure that it meets. So all of these are what we are doing, and we are collaborating with everybody, anybody that we can collaborate with. As we speak now, I am supposed to be, I was organizing a workshop for judges of the Investment and Securities Tribunal. That work was done by me, and my colleagues are still there, but because of how important this event is, I had to leave them to come. What are they doing? We are getting them to understanding what the commodities market looks like. Because once we have volumes, there will be disputes. And once there are disputes, there will be need for adjudication. All of these are the things we are doing. So I encourage everyone here to check our website for that report, and you see our recommendations, and you see what we are trying to do to make sure that this system works for us, works for our nation, and works for the future generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving me the last opportunity to say something. The problem we have is that the banks in Nigeria, particularly the credit section of the banks, are not helping farmers. That aspect has to be solved. If it is not, whether it's you bring out new big legislation or big bills and whatever, I wonder how much impact it will have on the farmers. In fact, the government, through the central bank, had to force the issue of 9% interest on agri and small-scale industries of processing. We need to still put more pressure so that it can go down to 5% or even 3%, as is done in advanced countries. Even in the seed industry, we do have some companies, let me even mention India, that have their people in Nigeria who are producing seeds. They give them interest. They give them, loans at very low interest in their country. They bring it to Nigeria, change it into Naira. It becomes big money. And they use that to almost send the seed companies out of business. So we need a group of what do you call it, the financial institutions should not only think of how many billions they declare in their AGM meetings. They should also think that those who are putting money there need environment that is conducive so that they can produce more food, produce more products that will bring more money for them to put in the bank also. Let it go around, not just those who call collateral, everyday collateral. For God's sake, let's think beyond outside the box. Seriously. Secondly, there was my good friend, Chief Okafo of AFAN, is so annoyed that this bill is being delayed. Please don't be annoyed. Maybe those putting pressure in the presidency will continue to put more pressure so that as the president is now happy to have a second term, he may quickly put his hand to sign it. As for Madam, how do we have access to fertilizer? Well, check the Ministry of Agri, check the fertilizer companies. Let's hope the rate that government says, 5,000 per bag or so, will be maintained. As for my big brother Arukoyo, I like all the questions you asked, and I hope that the Nigerian Economic Summit group will try their best to answer your questions and continue their voluntary and non-profit-making efforts in helping Nigeria. I want to thank them for all they have done for us, and they should continue. They should not be discouraged. And all we need, like the commodity man, is that they should have more sensitization of what they are doing so that they can be appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for the time that you have spent here today. We have had constructive engagements, we have had dialogue back and forth, and we come out with one of the summaries being that we all agree that there is the urgent need to have these 3 bills passed to enable the creation of a dynamic ecosystem that allows improvement of the livelihoods of smallholder farmers in Nigeria, as well as to ensure that we have food security in a country of over 200 million people. We will continue to put on the pressure, continue to move stakeholders, and hopefully we will get these bills passed, even as we race against the end of the life cycle of the 8th National Assembly. At this point, I'm going to call on my colleague, Sheung Ojo, to help us wrap up. Sheung Ojo is the head of Policy Intelligence Unit in our Abuja office.
Thank you. Unfortunately, our CEO had to leave. We have a similar dialogue session for another sector, for the power sector going on. And so I'm having to take the closing remarks on his behalf. On behalf of the NESG, we would like to thank you for being part of this dialogue session on agribusiness legislative reforms in Nigeria. We are very grateful for your contributions to the deliberations, and we feel that your lending your voices has enriched the process. We sincerely believe that our achieving the target of passage of these 3 bills will propel our drive towards increased productivity, increased livelihood for smallholder farmers, and moving smallholder farmers from subsistence farming to agribusiness. We also believe that passage of these bills will contribute towards our quest for food security and nutrition. We hope that as you go, we hope that you continue to lend your voices on the various platforms that you all belong to, and we hope that you advocate for the passage of these 3 bills. Once again, we would like to thank you for coming and for contributing to the deliberations.